Hello again, and welcome to the Master's Voice. I am Celestial, and you are welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you are very welcome. This is a slightly different kind of broadcast, even though it is going to contain a prophecy. Before I start anything, I would like to point out to all watching that it is still daylight. It is still daytime here in New York City. It is about 6:19 p.m. and as you can see from the actual daylight coming through my house window, it means that the sun has not yet set. It is very important for all viewers to make sure that they can recognize the difference in lighting between when I'm recording at night and I'm using artificial light, which indicates it is nighttime, as when I'm recording in the daytime. As you can now see, I'm sitting in front of an open window, and that means it's still daytime. The reason it's important for me to point out that it's still daytime is because we are still in the ark that is known on the Jewish calendar as Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the celebration of the Jewish New Year. And right now, if you were to pause this broadcast and go online, you would see the live celebration, the powerful live service that all of that area, basically, that we know as the Jewish state of Israel, has been building to for months. They apparently had a red heifer sacrifice and then tried to cover it up. They tried to pretend that, oh no, it's not the real sacrifice. This one that we're having is just a practice session. We're going to have a few more. And yet, their credible sources online, actually one Jewish guy himself was sitting on an American podcast showing off so greatly that he was one of those who was favored enough to receive some of the prized red heifer ashes. The red heifer's only significance is because the Jews believe, not the real Jews, the imposter state of Israel, they believe that their Messiah will be coming, and his coming will be preceded by the sacrificing of a spotless, unblemished red heifer. I don't know if it's one or many. That is because in these people's theology, which does not match the actual theology of the Bible, they believe that the Messiah will be coming back and that ushering in the third temple is all part of the timeline for him to come back. If you can see for yourself that I'm not too well versed in what it is that they believe, that's because I don't have spare mental bandwidth to spend on things that are not important. I want to know what the true God of Israel believes. I want to know what the true God of Israel has in store for all his people of all backgrounds, even those who are not yet his people, even those who are still in other faiths that are yet to come into the house of God. I want to spend my time, I want to immerse my time in understanding the word of God as it really is, not following current news events, not following current trends that people somehow want to mix with Christianity and say, oh, look, because they're sacrificing a red heifer, it must have some significance, because it has no significance whatsoever. The living God has already come. He's already paid the sacrifice for our sin. Jesus Christ already died on the cross, was buried 3 days. He's already risen again. He ascended into heaven with many witnesses watching him. He's seated at the right hand of the Father. He's our intercessor. He's our advocate. He's the lawyer constantly arguing cases for us before the throne of the Most High, as Satan, the accuser of the brethren, tries to constantly pull us down and accuse us so that we will no longer have a place before God. If you are a Christian and you are not increasing your knowledge in the actual rollout of the end times, and you're locked into broadcasts of people who have so little respect for God that the men cover their heads, even though the Bible says that the man is not supposed to cover his head, because if he covers his head, he dishonors his head. Covering of the head is for women. And yet that group of people constantly cover their head. And that is only one of myriad disrespects that they bring to the word of God as it is. And you're spending your time watching the outplay of those events instead of spending your time trying to figure out where is your place in the circle of life when it comes to really getting close to God and really getting ready for the things that our God is telling us through this platform and through the signs that we can see matching what the platform has said in the past. Then you're going to find yourself in a heavy conundrum when there comes a clash between fables, fantasies, storylines that are heavily promoted on international news media, heavily promoted as certain narratives that people have to follow. People have been very much conditioned by certain narratives. If that is what you're going to see, to stand with, you're going to see a terrible clash coming between that worldview and the worldview that Jesus Christ has. And that is why this prophecy that I have from the Lord that I received today, I think the last dream I had was pretty late in the morning, because this is only a half day for me. Okay. So it was just necessary to point out to you that I started this message in daylight. Therefore, this message, in a way, it's God's own service, God's own Rosh Hashanah service to the true Church of Jesus Christ and to true Israel. This is the service that the Spirit of God is hosting for you, and it is going to be something of an explosive bomb in the midst of this massive, internationally watched alternate service that is taking place right now. The title of this message is The Little Brown Book of the Jews. The Little Brown Book of the Jews. Message received from the Lord Jesus Christ, September 24th, 2025. I had this dream 3 times, and therefore I am constrained to tell you at the very beginning that even when God gives me a dream one time, it is a prophetic message that he is establishing to prove a point. He's establishing that prophetic message to let us know this is something I am going to do. So even if he gives it one time, it is a prophecy. And once I write it on the blog and once I come and make a video for it, that prophecy is considered active. If Yah never goes back to that topic again, not that that is his way. He usually will give a thing again and again and again and again. But if he only gives a topic one time, that topic is established, that topic is real, the topic has been prophesied, and the topic is thus says the Lord. However, we know from Joseph's situation where Pharaoh had a dream twice in a night, and during the interpretation process, Joseph let him know, oh, the reason that you had these 2 dreams which appear different, one with cows and one with stalks of wheat, they appear different, but your dreams are one and the same. And the reason that God gave you the dream twice is because the thing is established in heaven, meaning that this is a divine intention, meaning that this is something that is sure to come, something that is sure to happen. The prophecy that you're about to listen to is completely in line with the entire prophetic thread that the Lord began on the 1st of January, 2024. Yah began a very emphatic, strong, and aggressive thread of prophecy on January the 1st, 2024. I had a dream on the 1st. I had a dream on the 2nd. I had a dream on the 3rd. And on the 4th, the Lord spoke to me sternly and said, all these dreams, you will put them up today. And so I mentioned all the different dreams that I had. God speaking about what he calls the Jewish state that is in the Middle East. The Lord does not call them the Jews. The Lord has already revealed all through 2024, especially if you go and look at the playlist that is called Who Are the True Jews of Israel. All through 2024, he kept me on that theme, bringing to the knowledge of all people, regardless of whether you believe, whether you can accept it, whether you're just an American acolyte who has been raised by the church, and not even true churches, but just raised by the church in America to believe that the real Jews are those people, the sons of Japheth is what they are, pretending to be the sons of Shem that are in the Middle East, pretending that they are the Jews of the Bible, pretending that they are God's people, and they are not. They are imposters. Jesus revealed their identity long ago in Revelation chapter 2 and 9, and Revelation chapter 3 and 9, that they are a synagogue of Satan, that they do lie, that they say that they are Jews, but they are not. And so this message that you're about to hear, I received it not once, which would already establish it, and not twice, which means the thing is sure. I received it 3 times because God says that the people that are in the Jewish state of Israel are 100% his enemy. And he revealed since 2024 that he is going to scatter them, that he is going to make them diminutive. To be made diminutive in the earth means that your people group will actually suffer a series of events that will make you very few and very small until you are like straws in the wind. Not going to be a great group anymore, not going to be a power lobby anymore, not going to be popping up in countries that have already been stolen and taken for ransom, like the United States of America. America has no functioning brain in her. Israel rules this country. I'm speaking freely because I don't take donations here at the Master's Voice. I've never accepted a paid partnership with anyone. I don't have a secret Patreon where you can come and I'll drop you extra nuggets. Freely I have received from the Lord, and I have been freely given. It's never even crossed my mind to tell people to pay me for the information that I have, because this information is from Jesus Christ and it belongs to all human beings on earth. The fact that America is in the forefront as the topic of most of the prophecies means nothing. This is prophetic truth in the end times. And prophecy, Jesus Christ is the spirit of prophecy. And so the things that I discuss here, they come directly from heaven. They're given to me by dreams. They're given to me by direct revelation, meaning that God talks to me as clearly as a family member talks to you or talks to me. I hear the Lord clearly and I write things down. And even though my brain sometimes marvels at what it is writing on the pen, I know the voice of my master, Jesus Christ. And so the information on this blog is free. I don't owe anybody for it. I don't have a key at my lips that can be twisted because I have to be aware of offending this group or offending that group. You ought to be offended, especially here in the United States. You ought to be offended at the things that we believe in this country, at the things that we do in this country. We ought to be offended, but at ourselves, not at the Lord and not at the person who is speaking at the Lord's request. And so I thank the Lord very much that he was able to steer me into being able to do this prophecy while the light is still up, because that means that the Rosh Hashanah season is still active. Even if it gets dark as I speak, it is still Rosh Hashanah, which starts, I think, sundown the 22nd, all the way up to here. And so as they blow the shofar and the trumpet over there, as they make bold declarations that the whole world is watching right now, the live streams are still up and running. As you see their giddy faces, excited because they believe that this is going to be the most powerful and prophetic year for them yet. I, Celestial Revival, am sitting in front of you here in the United States of America, in New York City, and I'm cautioning you, pay attention to the God that you think you know. Look at how he works. Look at how he works. Look at how tactical he is. Look at how he didn't choose last week to give me this dream, and look at how he didn't wait until even a day after. He's bringing this word on the very same day that they're making powerful declarations, and he wants them to know that he has far more powerful declarations than they. The Little Brown Book of the Jews, September 24th, 2025. And so I'm sleeping and I dream of a man with a beard like the Jews have. Some Jews have very small beards. Some of them only keep the bottom part, and some of them have the part that, you know, it has I guess a connecting mustache. I don't really know what men call the different types of beards. This man had a beard that was very big and bushy. At times it looked like red hair, but then at other times it just appeared that his beard was very deep brown, but not black. I dreamt that a man with a beard, a yarmulke, and a small brown book was lying to the world on TV. He wore a brown suit, and he seemed to be a very busy and active and scurrying type of man. This man was extremely busy. This man seemed to have a lot of things on his itinerary. And everywhere he went, he wore kind of it wasn't exactly a good suit. You could definitely look at some suits and see there's some rayon in there somewhere. It was a brown suit, and it had these almost imperceptible thin black lines in the suit. And he had a yarmulke. And sometimes in the dreams, he was represented as having that other hat. Jews have different hats. They have the extreme tall hat. I don't know what that is. And then they also have one that just kind of looks like a bowler. So sometimes this man was wearing a bowler, and then other times he was wearing a yarmulke. And at all times, this man carried with him a small brown book. I dreamt 3 times of a man dressed like this, carrying a small brown book, lying to the world on TV. Each time I saw him, it was the same dream, but sometimes there were minor changes. And so the first dream that I had, I saw this man across the distance. Let's call it across the distance. But it was later, when I woke up, that I realized I was seeing this man across time. I was seeing this man actually across time. I wasn't seeing him just as we say, oh, there's Susan in the distance. And then you look and Susan is maybe 5 streets off, 3 streets off if you've got good eyes. But you can see it's Susan. And then she's in the distance. And then you recognize that Susan is in the distance. It wasn't like that. I saw this man across the distance and I saw what he was doing. I wasn't with him or near him the first time that I saw what he was doing, but I still knew this man is lying to the world. He went to a big radio station, a big TV station, pardon me. He went to a big TV station. I don't know if he was invited to the big TV station. I don't know if he made his own way to the big TV station and asked for airtime or paid for the airtime. All I know is he went to a big TV station and he was alone on a broadcast. And as I looked across the distance, it's as if I'm not watching the man only, I'm also watching the TV that he was on. And this TV was the old type of TV. You know how TV was? TV would be square. But then for some reason, TV would also be round. So the TV is square, the old TV. But then for some reason, the glass of the TV seems roundish or like a square with rounded sides. And then it has 2 little antennas at the top. And then it usually also has sometimes 2 wooden legs or 4 wooden legs and a very big sticking out back. That's the kind of TV that this man was on. And so I'm observing him inside the TV as he's on a broadcast, but at the same time, I'm seeing the man as he arrives at the TV station and is escorted down this long hallway that seems to have gray walls. And the first time I saw him, he was simply walking down the hallway by himself, heading to the room where he would go in and sit at these. I don't know why the whole feeling of the thing was like the Jetsons. If you know that antique cartoon that they sometimes run on the Turner TV station, the Jetsons, then the Jetsons had those TVs that have the circle head and the this like that. And also when they do the news, they will say, this just in, this and that and that and that. And then it wasn't as fancy or as decorated as the newsrooms that we have now. So he went into that room and I saw him inside the TV reading the news just like a newscaster, but he was not a newscaster. He was just a man in a brown suit that had a long row of buttons in the front and 2 slits in the jacket at the side, a poor suit with a big bushy beard and the connecting mustache part. He also had a brown book that he would read from and tell everybody lies from it. And the man was very good at his lies. Whenever he spoke, his voice was urgent. His voice was urgent, and I could see from the body language and the posture, as well as the urgent facial expressions and the way that he moved his hands, that he was speaking urgently about a pressing matter that he wanted everyone to know. I also knew that people around the world were listening intently to him as well. I also saw them through the TV. So I'm seeing the man as he gets ready to go and do the broadcast. I'm seeing an old style TV with the man sitting inside the TV doing a broadcast, literally reading the news with the newscaster paper as if he was a newscaster, but he was not. And I'm also seeing through the TV, past the man, at the reactions of the people that are watching him. And the people that I saw seemed to be Americans. So I saw the people who were listening to the man through the TV and how there were reactions. Some were so locked in on what he was saying that I saw them in their strange style of clothes from an older time period, crushing the cushions in anxiety while the man was talking to them. So some of them, which I could tell it seemed to be a younger person, some people posed their legs up on the couch, and they were so anxious by what the man was saying that they actually were holding the couch cushions. You know, the cushions your mom puts there to make the couch look nice. They were holding the couch cushions and unconsciously crushing the cushions because they were so nervous by what the man was saying. Just a moment, please. Some people were really leaning in. Some people were truly leaning in, especially the fathers in the home, whereas men would tend to sit with the newspaper open on their lap or smoking a pipe and watching the TV. I didn't notice many of the men or the fathers in any kind of relaxed positions. Instead, they seemed very locked in. And I was aware that this TV was broadcasting into homes around the world. So it wasn't only Americans that were listening. And I even saw, like, there was one lady, a blonde lady, okay, with an apron on, and she was listening. And she was very tense. She was listening and she was very tense. And she kept glancing at her husband to see what his reaction would be to the broadcast. Okay? So this was in the first dream, what I saw. Just a moment, please. And this is what the man in the brown suit was saying on the broadcast. He was telling the people, we are hungry. We are starving. We are a minute people. Very small. We are under imminent attack. We need friends and allies to meet us, to see us as equals and speak with us about what we're going to do. This is urgent. This is dangerous. We are few and under attack, and we need your help. And in the living room, under the pressure of this tense broadcast and the urgent words that the man spoke, people became affected by the broadcast. They wrung their hands in anxiety and they said, what shall we do? What can we do? And I saw that teens were sitting with their legs pulled up on the couch, not trembling, but so anxious that they were unconsciously crushing the cushions of the couch. And this one time, even though some of them put their legs on the couch that their mother always fussed over, the mother herself was so anxious that she ignored it and didn't fuss. And the father said, I guess we'll have to call our congressman then and make some calls. At least this was the response of one family that I was looking at. But I saw that many, many people around the world were watching the same broadcast. And I was very annoyed because I didn't trust the man at all who was speaking. As I looked at him, he wasn't a man. He was a big brown spider filled with eyes. So scary and so disgusting. A big brown spider reading from a little brown book, healthy and fat, lying and saying, I am in danger. Help me, send help. When no such thing was true. And indeed, this man was a massive spider, not the hairy type, the type that you really need to bring in your siblings to help you to fight. It's the type that has that fleshy body in the middle with the legs out. And the Lord zoomed in on the man so much that I could see all the hundreds or however many round spider eyes on his face. Tons and tons of little beady black spider eyes sitting there, puffed up fat, with the suit barely able to close on him with the row of buttons pulling when something is too big and the suit is too small, and the arms sticking out through many sleeves of the suit, saying in a spider voice, "I'm in danger. Help me. Someone. Listen. Send help." And I became so annoyed, like a deep annoyance in my soul. And indeed, the scripture says that part of the punishment that the Lord said that he would give to true Israel is that he would annoy us and incite us to a deep anger by a people who were not his. And that is who is in the Middle East currently. I was very annoyed. And I sought for a way to do something. And then the dream ended. I woke up and I remembered what I had seen, but I still wanted to sleep. And I did want to sleep. And so I went right back to sleep again. And I dreamt of a Jewish man, the same man in the not so good quality brown suit with the almost invisible thin black stripes, in a hurry, walking down the corridor of a news station, heading to one empty broadcasting room, about to read the news. He had papers clutched in his hands, just like the newscasters would. And this time he wasn't alone in the hallway, but I saw him walking ahead of a few people who were walking behind him with clipboards, and some of them had, that headset that I guess the TV station engineers have. I don't know what they look like now, but in the old days, it would be like a thin band and then black cups on the ears and then something coming in the front where he's like, "No, tell Joel to go to the back. We need him to prepare that room. We need this and we need that." It was like that. And so I saw a few people walking behind him, having like an impromptu press conversation, talking like, okay, what are we going to do? Do we have engineers in there? Is the cameraman, is Mike ready? That kind of thing. But this man walked alone by himself, intently heading down the hallway to go to the same room I saw him in the first time. This man was with the news people, but I knew that he was not a part of them that worked at the news station. I knew that he was not a news anchor, and I knew that he didn't belong to either the network, nor was he an employee of that particular station. He was just being allowed to read news because of special privileges that someone had assigned to him. Someone had made room for him. Someone had made a call. And now the news station had been told to make room for him in their schedule for him to make a public appeal. And that is what he did. They set up a breaking news segment where the man sat and spoke in urgent tones, saying, "It's the Palestinians. It's the Palestinians. It's not us. It's them. We are a small nation. We are under attack. We need your help. We need you urgently to partner with us. Time is of the essence. It's a matter of life and death." And then just like before, he took the little brown book that he always carried with him, and he opened it, and he began to read from it, speaking in a language that I don't know. Hebrew. He read from the book a while, and then he interpreted what he read. So he read directly from the book. He interpreted directly what the book said, and then he reinterpreted it, telling the people what he meant to say. But during that time when he was reading from the brown book, first in Hebrew, and then in English, and then interpreting in English what the meaning was supposed to be, Yah turned off the sound in the dream so that I was not able to hear what he said or understand. I looked at the man across the distance because I was not where he was. I was somewhere else. I looked at the man across the distance from where I was. And this time, I understood that I was not directly watching any kind of TV. So I was not, for instance, watching a TV somewhere in a house, watching this man on the TV making a broadcast. I was somewhere else entirely, watching him through time in the past. And again, I became so annoyed with the obvious lies of this man that this time I decided to do something about it. I did not trust that man one bit. And I knew that he was lying by the discernment of the Lord. So I made a firm decision and I decided to do something about it. And the only thing that I could think to do was to go on the internet and try to stop the lie. Keep in mind that me and the man were not in the same area or even the same time frame or time zone at all. He was in the past, but I was in the present. But I decided that I couldn't let him keep lying like this, that fat and greedy spider, because to me, in the dream, it felt like the man was alive, just in another location. And so I felt a powerful urgency to counter the lies of this man, because I thought, if this man is alive and lying on TV like this, there's only one thing that I have available, and it's the internet. I'm going to help people by telling them the truth versus the lie that he's telling, and then they can decide for themselves. I had this dream 3 times, and every time I decided, even in the first dream, where God let me see that I was annoyed and that I wanted to do something, but then the dream cut off and I didn't actually see myself do anything. I dreamt the dream 3 times, and every time I decided that this was the best course of action. At the same time, in the second and the third dream, because I didn't see this in the first dream, it seemed like a school was involved somehow. A special and a different school where only God selects the student. I saw that a special, different school where God decides who can attend that school was there. When I got tired of seeing the man in the second dream, and I became so annoyed with his lying self, I thought, I'm going to go home and I'm going to tell the people that this is a lie. This whole discussion that this man is having on TV is a lie. The little brown book that he reads from at the end is a lie. The man himself is a liar, and people ought to be careful of liars. That's what I'm going to tell them. And then if I saw myself with people, such as in one case, I saw myself that I was out at a very tall mall. I was on the 2nd or the 3rd floor of the mall. And in another case, I found myself out with people, like I think we were mingling somewhere. But wherever I was, I would decide this man is a liar and it's up to me. And I don't have the TV station. I'm going to use the only thing available to me, the internet, and I'm going to counter the lies of this man who is lying. And then I would make an excuse to excuse myself. Sorry, you guys, I have to go. I have to do something that just came up. I would leave that place. And whenever I would be coming outside, instead of going to, obviously, an elevator bank or an escalator bank within the place where I was, I came outside as if, you know when you're at places, for instance, if you go to a hotel and you have a hotel with a balcony, well, then there might be a place that has a balcony all through and you could come outside, and then there might be stairs. Every single time I would come outside and this tall escalator would attach itself to wherever I was, whether it was a tall building or a short building. This escalator would appear out of nowhere, rolling itself autonomously without human beings' help. It would attach itself to the building right where I was standing, and then I would get on it. The minute I get on it, these gates would come on the escalator at the top. So these gates would come and shut it, because in one of the dreams, my friends were with me and they were like, oh, can we come with you? And then I had to say to them, you can't come with me because I don't even know how to bring you with me, because look, the entryway is shut. So the escalator would come with an opening, exactly like that thing they bring at the planes, exactly, for us to get off. You know, the thing that they roll, the plane stairs, and then they attach it to the plane and you come down. It was like that, but it would shut people off. So the escalator would come, attach itself to the side of the building that I was in. It didn't matter where I was, and it didn't matter what part of the building I was. The escalator knew where to come to the building and attach itself. And then I would get on it and ride it all the way down. It never admitted anyone else to get on it. And as soon as I would step off it, it disappeared. Now, as I would be coming down the escalator, as in the second dream, a big black car pulled up, the exact kind of car that the government uses. But the thing is that the driver in that car could not be seen by myself. And I went to the car. This is my second dream. I went to the car, and that's the car that would take me to school. I never actually saw the school, and I couldn't bring anyone else in the car with me. So even if my companions had come downstairs, seeing this escalator and seeing the car arriving, even if my companions used the elevators or used the stairs and came down to the bottom and expressed interest and said, Celestial, where are you going? They were never allowed to use the escalator, and the driver in the car, without saying words, made it very clear that no one else should get in the car but me. He never spoke, and yet I understood, and my companions would understand, this is not allowed. And so they would always bid me farewell, and they would go away, and then I went with the car. So I'm still dreaming. I went home, and I used the internet. I set myself up, and I said, hello, everyone. I'm here to tell you the truth. The man with the brown suit is lying. He is not a real Jew. He is not a Bible person from the Exodus. He is lying and pretending, and he wants to take your money and your sympathy too. He isn't real. He's a construct. He's part of a big idea. He represents something that is made up, and that's why you aren't allowed to question it, or he'll call you a racist. But you must think for yourself. You must question it. The book he has isn't real. It's about something else. He's lying. He isn't really a Jew. And you have to stop listening to him. I just have to pause at this moment in the dream to say that the Lord says to me right now, this dream is about hearing the truth. This dream is about finding the truth for yourself. The Lord says this dream is about learning how to decouple from the lies that are in the world today, how to use your critical thinking. He says it's about learning how to find the secrets that abound in the world today, because if you don't find the secrets, Yah says you will be destroyed by the mountain of lies, by the ocean of lies that exist in the world today. So there's that. So the first time I did this, the first time I sat on the internet and I said, hello, everyone, I'm here to tell you the truth. That man with the brown suit is lying. He is not a real Jew. He's not a Bible person who came out of Egypt, as we describe in the book of Exodus. The first time I did all this, the man didn't hear me because, of course, the man was in the past. The second time, when I saw him broadcasting, I decided, no, this has to stop. I made to leave where I was, and the escalator appeared and came exactly to where I was standing in the building. Then the car came and took me to school, except that I didn't go to an actual school. The car took me home, and I made a video. I said to the people of the world, the man in the brown suit is a liar. God showed me. He lies and he takes things from others. He is not a good person. He has done terrible things, and they're trying to cover it up. It's not about the Palestinians. It's him. He's the one. He's the problem. He's the cover-up that disturbs the nations. God showed me. The book isn't real, and it's dangerous because it lies. Please don't believe him. I am here telling you from Jesus, stop listening to that man. This time, the man heard me, and he stopped doing what he was doing, and he became so filled with rage that truly he looked dangerous. He went very red in the face, and he made a snarling face. He scrunched up the papers that he was holding, and he just sat there, hunched with rage, listening to me explain to people in the video how Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob never produced a man like that or anyone who's with him. I was saying anyone who's with him, anyone of his lineage and descendants who are claiming to be from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are not. They're all imposters. None of them are the real people of the book of the Lord. I was earnestly speaking, and I was showing people how many times and places in history this man had gone with his book, telling lies. And then I woke up. Now, I still wanted to sleep more, so I lay back down again. But this second time when I went to sleep, I did not remember that I had had a first or a second dream. I just woke up and thought, there's still time. And then I fell back asleep, and I had a third dream. In this dream, I was at some building that had multiple stories, and I was interacting with people who were talking to me, I'm talking to them, and we're mingling, and then all of a sudden, I'm standing in a room with people. That's what I'm seeing. And then I look across the distance, and instead of the room that I'm in, I see that man. And he was on this time a very big network, appealing to the people to send more to prevent what he was calling the imminent slaughter of the Jews. It is an imminent slaughter, is what he said. And he had a black suit on this time, the clothes that we know the Jews to wear. The cut and the quality of his clothing was much better and far more modern, but it was still the same man that I'd seen before. A man with a beard that appeared dark brown, but also to have somewhat reddish tones. He was wearing the yarmulke. He had the papers that he always read from. And next to him on the table, while he was making his impassioned appeal for people to send more, he said. Next to him on the table, as he did a solo broadcast at a very big network, was the familiar little brown book. He said, "It is an imminent slaughter, and we are surrounded. We need your help. We are the Jews, so partner with us to prevent genocide." When I heard this, the rage in me at this man was monumental. I did not remember any of my dreams before. I did not remember that I seen this man before, that this is what he always does, going from network to network based on special privileges that are made for him to sit and appeal to the entire world, telling us that him and his people are under imminent attack any moment. Any moment their lives could be lost. It's the danger of the Palestinians, he said. Partner with us. Send us what you have. Send more. When I saw that man, I didn't remember anything about the previous dreams or even the steps that I had taken. I was just filled with rage. And I just thought, who is this man across the distance who lies like this? Why do you lie like this and endanger everyone with the power of your lies? I told the people I was mingling with, I'll see you. I have to go and do something. We'll talk again soon. And I walked out in a great hurry to the side of the building, walking past the escalators and the elevators that were right there. I walked all the way to the edge of the building, and then suddenly an escalator appeared, rolled up to the building, and attached itself to the side of the building. My friend had followed me out saying, "What's wrong, Celestial? Why do you have to leave so urgently?" And all I could say over my shoulder was, "I'm going to school." And so when I got on the escalator and started going down, my friend stood there and said, "Can I come too?" And I said, "No, it's a school where God has to send you an invitation to come there." And while I was saying this, I saw the black SUV pulling up with its night brights on. And then it pulled up right to the floor of the escalator, and I got in, and the man that I could never see took me somewhere. And then I saw myself again on another broadcast. And I said, "It is time to finish the lies and the deception of the Jews. It is time. It cannot continue. For decades, this man has lied that he is in danger, but he is not in any danger. He only wants your spare change. He wants your money. He wants you to send him money so all of them can eat it. He is not dying. He is not anything that he says he is. God has shown me, people. God has shown me the nature of this man. God has shown me that he lies about simple things, small things, and even big things too. He doesn't have the numbers he says he has. He never had 6 million people to spare to die in a concentration camp. His population census information does not bear this up. This man is a liar, and so is his book that he keeps reading from. And if I don't tell you, then someone else will tell you eventually. But God showed me that Palestine isn't the problem. This man is the problem. He's a lying man. He's a very wicked man. And I saw in a book that he never had the 6 million Jews he claims he had to let die. It was in a book right in front of me. They never reached such a major number as 6 million put to death in a camp. Stay away from this man in brown. This is capital letters. He is a liar and very dangerous. And soon you will see why I say that. And then I went off my broadcast because I was on the internet only, of course, while the man was on TV. But even in this third dream, the man heard me, and the rage of the man was shown to me as a great rage. Like when Rumpelstiltskin wanted to eat the princess's baby, but instead she guessed his name correctly. I'll pause. If you don't know the story of Rumpelstiltskin, Rumpelstiltskin was a little demonic type of gnome. The way that Rumpelstiltskin is presented in Western culture matches perfectly the description of what African people in Southern Africa called a tokoloshi. A tokoloshi. So this is a kind of gnomish, dwarf type of very hideously evil being. And so even though the two cultures don't match, literally the description of the being that was known in Western culture as Rumpelstiltskin match. And basically, this princess had a horrible mother-in-law. As always, the king lost his beautiful wife and then takes a second wife who is just the witchy type. And she's horrible to this man's only daughter. Same situation that Cinderella found herself in. And this woman locked the girl in a tower and told her that she had to spin straw into gold. Now, some say that in those days they believe it could be done, but this kind of thing could only take place by magic, like what the alchemists used to do. So what the woman was functionally saying is that she was going to keep the girl in the tower forever because this is a princess and she doesn't possess magic and she doesn't know how to spin any straw into anything. So they lock her away in a tower in a room that is filled to the sky with hay. Grass, hay that the animals eat. And then basically as far as the queen is finished as thinking, she's done with the girl. And then the girl is crying, he. And then Rumpelstiltskin, being wicked, somehow finds his way in there and says, "Oh, princess, why are you crying?" He totally knows because the devil is always listening to our various predicaments. The devil is always listening. The devil is always nearby. The devil is always willing to come up with what looks like a brilliant solution to your problems, except that it will always have a snare. It will always have a trap. It will always have a python's slow grip or a cobra's fast strike. And then you will end up paying a price for what looked like a good solution and a good idea. And so he tells the girl there's no need to cry. He has the magic. He has the power. And he can turn the straw into gold. And so the girl is wandering there in her little prison place. She goes to another place and he says, "Leave me." And then he turns the straw into gold. Obviously, he doesn't want her to see how it is. And then she calls the stepmother and she says, "Oh, the thing has been turned into gold." And then she's let out. She's married, but then there was a caveat. There was an agreement Rumpelstiltskin told her that what he wanted was for payment was her firstborn child. And now you can actually see how so many stories in Western culture actually reveal the fascination with the eating and the destruction of the very young. We live in a modern society now that acts like it cares about babies, even as it murders and aborts them. But at the same time, the society seems to be lacking the greater understanding of how much the predatory nature of the dragon, the serpent, Satan, is focused on your babies, to the point that even when the children are in the womb, he goes after them by suggesting that they are not children, that they are not real, that they are a clump of cells, and that you can kill them with no responsibility being heaped upon your head whatsoever. And so he makes an arrangement with the princess that if I turn the straw into gold for you, these were the terms. Rumpelstiltskin said that he wanted her firstborn child. And her, being a young woman, wasn't thinking anything of it. She was young, and so she agrees. And then she comes outside. She's free. She's blending in the palace. She meets a prince, and they get married. And the day comes where she becomes a mom. And like clockwork, without being told, Rumpelstiltskin shows up, because, again, this is the way of the devil. Nobody needs to tell the devil that you just got married, that you just had a child, that you just got promoted. Satan keeps a close eye on humanity, and he will always come at that moment to find a way to ruin it, to topple you into despair, or to steal, to kill, and to destroy. Rumpelstiltskin shows up, and he's about to collect. And now the girl is stuck. What do you mean you want my baby? This is my baby. My firstborn baby, my only baby. And Rumpelstiltskin says, you are a princess, and the princess must be a woman of her word. But the girl cries, ahi, 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 until finally this wicked thing is persuaded. And so he gives her an alternative deal. And he tells her, if you can guess my name, I'll let the debt go. You don't have to give me the baby and the hay I turned into gold for you that actually brought you out of your captivity. We will say no more about it. But now, who knows the name of a Tokolosh? Who knows the name of a garden gnome, a dwarf, a darkness dweller, a child of Satan? This girl, he gives her 3 days. And so he comes on the first day and he says, have you got my name? And she's out there talking about Peter and Paul and John and Saul. And the thing is laughing in her face. That is not my name. That is not my name. And then he comes the second day and he says, do you know my name? And she's desperate. She's casting out every name that she can think about. And he's laughing because Satan does so enjoy when he comes to collect. And we're now on the hook for the deal that we made with him. And she's begging and imploring, and he says to her, my dear princess, I have changed the terms for you already, and you are still failing. Tomorrow I come to take the child, if you cannot guess my name. And so this girl is desperate, desperate, desperate. And then I don't know what entered into the mind of this creature. But this girl happened to be in a bedroom in the palace that he went to stand. You know, they're very short, these creatures, just maybe less than 2 feet. And so he went to stand underneath one of the bedrooms, and he began to do his little evil spirit dance. And he was dancing and he was singing a little rhyme. And the rhyme was basically, you can't catch me because my name is Rumpelstiltskin. My name is Rumpelstiltskin. So I don't know how the story goes. I don't know if a servant heard the thing or if the princess herself heard the thing. But either way, the name became revealed. And then depending on what Western culture is carrying the story of Rumpelstiltskin, which was an evil, trickster, deal-making, wicked being, when he came before the princess on the third day, she tried a wrong name or two to make him think it was the same rigmarole and that he was going to win. And then she said, could your name be Rumpelstiltskin? And when she did it, that trap, that spiritual trap that she had put herself in was broken. And the rage inside this little demonic being, the story says, was a sight to see. Being tiny and diminutive, there wasn't much that he can do. And then just like you see in the cartoons, he began to jump up and down, jump up and down. So great was his rage, his face transforming to show teeth and all that. The original story lets us know that this was not a friendly dwarf or a friendly little garden gnome. And then depending on what country ends the story, because some countries love to sanitize everything, but that was not the original Brothers Grimm Mother Goose stories that I read as a child. Rumpelstiltskin was so enraged that in his jumping up and down, he came down the wrong way, and he literally split or tore himself apart with rage. In my sleeping state, this is how this man appeared. He was a person, but he didn't look like a person because of the type of rage that was in him. He was so mad that God was showing me Rumpelstiltskin, how he jumped up and down in anger until he finally fell and split himself into two pieces and died. That's how that man's rage was boiling in him. He was literally gnashing and grinding his teeth together. And he was cursing great curses, because I got on the internet and I told the people that he never died in a gas chamber and that he didn't have 6 million to die. Because if that were so, there would have been barely enough to none of them left. The thing was, I don't know how I know that. I'm still reciting to you my dream. Please pay attention. Please stay locked in. The thing was, I don't know how I know that. I saw a book on the table where God keeps all his things. It was like God was a very busy man working on many, many things, so many things at once. The way a very intelligent man keeps a study with so many tall bookshelves lined with books. And on his table are endless books and maps and plans and writings and an inkwell with writing ink and piles of papers and everything like that. The mark of a very intelligent man with many things to do. I saw an office like that belonging to God, and he had stepped out for the moment. So I went inside because it was so nice and I was curious, and there was a fireplace with a fire in it, and it was also very warm and felt familiar in there. And everywhere he had yellow lamps instead of this harsh white modern lamp lighting that we use now. And I saw on his table, among many books, a book that was open to a specific page. And a piece of the page, when I looked at it, said that there were never enough Jews in existence at the time of the Second World War for there ever to have been a slaughter of 6 million of them without causing an extinction level drop in their population. The book said, this is a fact and a mathematical impossibility. And so having seen that on the desk of that man, who I took to be the Lord, that had so many papers spilling out everywhere in his office, endless rows of bookcases with this book and that book and that book with titles that I could not read or remember. That one book was open on a corner of the desk, and it said, it is a lie that Jews ever had such massive gains in personhood that they could casually leave 6 million behind and still be living. So I told the people what I had seen, but I did not tell them that I saw it in a book in my dreams. I just said in my internet broadcast, be careful of the man in brown. He lies. He lies so bad that you cannot risk listening to him any longer. And so, in this last dream, I'm still describing my third dream. Without waking up, the man in brown went on a TV broadcast, and this time, his tone was different. I had a first dream, I saw myself do nothing. A second dream, I saw the man. I said, I will make a broadcast to counter this man's lies. a third dream, I said, I will make a broadcast. And I was telling them that it's impossible for this man to have had the numbers that he had. And I saw it. It's true. He never had this kind of numbers. And then without waking up, I have a little kind of, I don't know, you can't call it a prologue. Prologue comes at the beginning. Whatever you call it at the end, when a story is ending, I had a little fourth dream without waking up. And in it, the man in brown went on a TV broadcast. And this time, his tone was totally different. He did not speak peacefully or in a sad voice like, oh, what shall I do? I need help. I need your help. I am in danger. My wife is in danger. My child is in danger. Help us. Be with us. Be on our side and partner with us. Send your donations and the things that you have and help us save our lives. That man was not talking like that. No, the man that was sitting on this last broadcast was clutching those papers that he always used to read from. He was clutching those papers in one hand with white knuckles of barely suppressed rage. He was speaking in a strong tone of anger, saying that people have misinterpreted him and are saying things about him wrong on the internet, but he is not like that. His voice was strong, his grip on the papers was strong, and his tone was very aggressive and emphatic as he defended himself. And he said that he's not like that. And he knows that people are saying things that are not true about him and talking about him wrong on the internet. And then I didn't get to hear much else of what he was saying because someone came and started escorting me out of the dream. I didn't see who came. The person came and got me. And then now it turns out I'm in this station myself. I'm in the station myself, maybe in the room with the man or definitely somewhere around. But now someone came to start escorting me out of the dream. Now I was in the same place as the man. I was in the same time zone and time dimension as the man. And in fact, I was in the same building with the man as he made his angry broadcast. But someone came and talked to me and then took me into that same hallway that had always seen the man walking in very authoritatively to go and make his broadcast. Except that now the hallway was more modern. It used to be very narrow, I guess, but they had done renovations and now it was big, like that hallway that they have on the game shows where the people come and they're like introducing and then they get to dance down the hallway. This hallway was much bigger and it had flat screen TVs at different intervals so that all the station people, as they rushed back and forth, they would always know what's going on in Studio 1, what's going on in Studio 2. Don't step in there because they're actually live. You could see on these TVs. And so as I was in that hallway being escorted out of the dream by someone, I was able to look at the man on the screen as we were leaving. All the TVs were playing him. And the man was so angry that he lost all composure. He made an angry fist exactly like the Black Power salute. He made an angry fist like the Black Power salute, the salute of the Black Panthers. And then he started shouting, Aleph, 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 with so much rage. And in fact, that word Aleph is what I was hearing when I woke up. The word Aleph is the very first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Don't mind me telling it to you like that, as if I knew it. I had to write it down and Google it on my phone when I woke up to find out what is that word, what is that strange word he was using. And the word Aleph means mastery. Mastery, rulership, dominion. It also is the word that you can give reverence to God because it means in the short form, master. A-L-E-P-H. The first word or the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. That's what that man was shouting with the Black Power salute. Aleph, Aleph. And so The Lord said to me when I woke up, you will make this dream today as soon as you can, because I will act on it speedily and even now bring it to pass. I will fling those people from my land, which is now called Palestine. I will fling them out like seeds that are no more wanted, who are rejected from before me forevermore. I will scatter them everywhere and break down their dominion. They will no longer have safety from aggression, but instead will be made afraid on every side. As they have done to others, it will be done to them. Thus says the Lord. This is the end of their rule. It is the end of their dominion. They are in a war corridor, and as they have done to others, it shall be done to them. Hear the message of the Most High to the Jewish state of Israel. This is the year of your defeat and embarrassment of shame. You will fall down. Everything you do will fall down. Everything you try, it will fail. Everything you attempt will crumble, and you will be ashamed of your lies, which you have lied to the whole world. They will fall down. They will be ashamed. They will be humbled in immaculate ways, which the Lord of hosts, Jesus Christ, has named for them to be humbled in. They will be derobed. They will be defrocked. They will be exposed by a treasure trove library I have kept back for this time. Whoever has information on the Jews, post it. Whoever has a video archive footage of the Jews, release it. Thus says the Lord. You will go down in your own words and pictures. Not anyone else accusing you or lying on you as you always claim. You will go down in your own words, in your own images, and in your own pictures. And it will be known to the whole world who you really are. Thus saith the Lord. And so I made sure, while pointing out to the viewer the active daylight that was still available when I started this video, to make you know well and sure the kind of God that a lot of people on this earth think that they are playing with. This is the kind of God who remembered Jackie Hill Perry with a deadly prophecy on her birthday, which was not known to me. The Lord spoke to me in urgency and told me, you will make this prophecy today, because it was in my heart to wait until the further day. To say I've received a prophecy like all others, I will make it into a video when I have time. And the Lord said to me, that is not what you will do. You will make it today. And so I had to sit up through the night, make the video, release it. And the day it went out is the day the woman was born. That is the way God works. When you have brought yourself completely out of the will of God, out of the favor of God, dare I say, when you have now reached outrageous lengths of disobedience and misalignment with the Spirit of God, God will kill you in a way that is so poetic, like the way that he killed King Ahab and his wife. If you go back and look in the book of Kings, you will find that Ahab and his wife, Jezebel, died the same way. They died in a way that dogs had access to their blood. And nobody needs to be told that the people in the Bible are not Americans. Americans act as if their dogs are more important or at least equal to human beings. That's not the way the Bible portrays a dog. Whenever they curse someone, they will use dog as a description. Whenever they are rejecting something or someone, the dog is the descriptor. To them, it's a lowly thing. It's a cur. It's a cur. A cur is an abandoned dog, an unwanted dog, the dog that's full of the mange. A dog that's not clean. A dog that you know maggots are in the flesh and fleas are skipping and bopping on the skin. It's a lowly and wretched creature. The dog is also presented as a savage beast. It's savage, it's unwanted, it's unclean, it's conniving, it's plotting, it's wicked. And King David would talk about his enemies and say that they're surrounding him like that, like bulls and like dogs. That's the creature that drank a king's blood and drank a queen's blood, because when you play with God, he will play back and then everybody will be unhappy. And so on this same day that the Jewish state of Israel is playing the bongos, have collected every shofar within a 3,000-mile radius, they're blowing it. It's a triumphant declaration of their statehood in this brand new Rosh Hashanah. Jesus Christ in heaven tapped his daughter, the prophet, who is living now, declaring the end days and what things shall come for all flesh. Tapped her not once, tapped her not twice, but tapped her 3 times and said, go forth with this message that I'm about to tear the clothes off of Israel. When God tells you that you are about to be derobed, let me tell you, derobing on its very lowest level, I guess, is when your clothes are taken off. When you derobe, you take off your clothes. And we all know that beneath the clothes is a man, a woman's, a child's nakedness. But at the higher level, for instance, you might say at the political level, at the geopolitical level, at the prophetic level, and simply at the international and the public level, telling a nation of people, telling a state, political entity that you're going to derobe it means that you're going to take away its power and its authority. And to those of you who don't spend time keeping up with the news, Benjamin Netanyahu went to address the United Nations and the prophecy of the Master's voice was fulfilled. For Israel is nothing more than the puppet master of America. You see America, you see Israel, you see Israel, you see America. He went to address the people and the delegates got up and walked out. This is a moment that is so historic in our time. The vindication of the Lord makes my face to shine. UN people are not your average staff people, okay? These people are earning like $20 trillion a minute. That's why it's such a cushy job. It's a secure job. It's a lifetime job, because the United Nations is that one employer that is so bogged down in red tape and bureaucracy that it's very hard to get in. But when you get in, you have lifetime employment. These people are chosen for their steadfastness. They're chosen for their ability to be able to think critically, to be able to crunch global numbers. I'm talking about the people that operate at the high level. I'm not talking about your everyday, even the everyday people, even the guys who are just typing up things, even their IT techs. You can't just have servers and have access to so much information and then they just pick you off of a video game website and then tell you, come and work at the UN. It doesn't work like that. It's a carefully curated spot, and for good reason. The lifeblood of the nations is pumping through that organization. So at the higher level, the people that they actually pick to be international delegates are not fast-talking people. They're not people that easily will take offense. They have to be thick-skinned. They have to be people who can think on their feet. And they naturally have to be people who are highly partisan. To be partisan means that you are holding almost like bubbling lava in your heart, the interests of your nation that you are now going to the United Nations to represent, to argue for, to vote, to try to get the best deal for your country, especially in this highly tilted international order that we have, where Western nations have maintained a chokehold and a stranglehold at the top, barely tolerating anyone else to rise to them. And the only reason you have a China and the only reason you have a Russia sitting there on the Security Council is because those nations eventually grew too big, too advanced, too powerful, and too nuked up for people like America and France and Germany and the rest of them to ignore them. They are not the natural allies, because even among Western powers, they're the pretty girls and the pretty boys, the ones who own all the world media. I'm speaking to you because God told me, tell them everything. And so you're even going to get a preview of another prophecy that is coming up where the Lord has words for true Israel. Not something that they will want to hear, but the leaders of true Israel, I believe that the Lord is preparing to bring these men and women out, because if they do not come out soon enough, and I speak without biting my tongue, these people in America are going to kill us. They are literally going to kill us. That is their intention, and that is their plan. If you watch that so-called funeral that was nothing more than a Nazi rally, complete with streamers and a big fat fake cross, if you watch that funeral and you do not know that you are looking at white supremacy back with a bang without the hoods, Israel, you need to lock up. So I will read a little bit of the second prophecy that I may be able to do today. But God has words for us, and that word is literally what Nehemiah was telling his men. You need to open your eyes in this country, and you need to look alive. If you don't, and this includes you, white person who is a lover of black people, who is out there kissing, loving, and marrying Latinos, to the wave nouveau that is coming, you are no different than Mr. Loving. You know Mr. Loving, don't you? Just look up Mr. and Mrs. Loving and get an education on this fine day. You, the white person that is friendly with the black people in the urban centers of United States, Chicago, New York, wherever your friends, you're loving across the color lines, they will take you exactly to be like us. They will see you as no different. Whatever they used to call you in the old days when you had compassion and you truly believed that all men were created equal, whatever the terms they used to call you back then, they will call you that term again. You will be Mr. Loving, the white man who dared to fall in love with a black woman. So to bring it neatly back to where we are now, geopolitically, the people in the United Nations are people who are chosen for their ability to control themselves, chosen for their ability to represent their nations well, chosen for their ability to always want to present their nation in the best possible light. In the United Nations, your country could be engaged in a brutal civil war. That doesn't stop you from having a voice. There could be a brutal civil war going on in your country. That doesn't stop you from having a voice. That doesn't stop you from voting. And it may be hard for the delegate when the delegate shows up and people just constantly keep making reference to the situation in West Africa and the situation in Bosnia. It can be hard for those people as their nations go through times of tumult, times of upheaval. But the central core is that the UN is the UN, and people are expected to behave a certain way. So to see people getting up and turning their back on Benjamin Netanyahu tells you that the America-ruled global order is dead. It tells you that every single prophecy at the top stack of the Russia-China prophecies that always talked about from the years 2019 to about 2021, all the prophecies at the top of the Russia and China stack are therefore basically in the fulfillment period, because it talks about a growing disinterest of the world with America, a growing disinterest in a global order where anybody cares about what America thinks, a growing disinterest with America-led solutions, America-presented ideals, American foreign policy of any kind. Those prophecies already said that those things would come to pass. And since I already told you that this is not a buffet where you get to come in and listen to the prophecies and say, oh, I agree with her here and here, and then I bring a topic, and then all of a sudden you're hot under the collar and you're mad and you're like, I was following you until, and now I'm leaving. You need to leave, because to tell you the truth, the seats on this blog are very limited. I absolutely don't want a tear sitting in a chair that someone from India could take. Someone from Wisconsin can take that chair. It doesn't matter about his background, and it doesn't matter how many times he voted red. The amount of people that I've seen on the internet in the last 24 hours since Donald Trump embarrassed the skin off of our bodies with that disastrous United Nations speech, cussing the people out as if he was addressing his two single-celled organism MAGA base, is atrocious. He shamed the nation, fulfilling a Master's Voice prophecy from years ago, and God has been bringing it back. The American leaders will say the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong people. That man embarrassed this nation. He left the people double checking their ear things. I have seen MAGA on the internet and people who are Republican but less extreme than MAGA severely starting to examine what they voted for. And they've been in that rictus for months, ever since they started losing their farm workers, ever since they started losing their veterans benefits, ever since they started losing their health care, ever since they started losing Maria, who looks after their baby, ever since they started losing anything that actually matters to them. When they realized what they voted for, they started to repent. But never have I seen true regret like what is being seen on social media right now. They're outright sorry because they realize that they have a megalomaniac on the loose, goaded on by people like Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller. You cannot put the jack back in the box. But these people are sad. The way that the president spoke to the international community yesterday, whining on and on about the escalator and the teleprompter not ready. They gave me an escalator that wasn't working. The teleprompter doesn't work. You do know that other heads of state were there and that the teleprompter wasn't working for anyone, not just him. He embarrassed the country. He told those people that their nations are going to hell because their nations are filled with black people like myself and brown people like the Pakistanis and the Indians that are in the UK. He left out how the UK went and sat themselves, who don't match the people in India or the people in Australia or the people in Pakistan, for hundreds of years, stealing everything that wasn't nailed down and turning those massive independent spaces into nothing more than servants to white people and the British Crown. He didn't mention that maybe the people are just in their country because they missed them and they came to visit and stay, the way they went over to steal and stay. He told them that their nations are immigration hell, and that the sure way to turn a good country into hell is to let black and other colored people enter it. And then there are people that will still come to this blog and say, well, maybe the way that things were being phrased are offensive. The phrases themselves, the ideas themselves, the fact that some mouths actually think it's okay to think these things is offensive. It's not how you phrase the epithet. It's the fact that you think it to begin with that is offensive. There is no right way to say a racist thing. But there are massive groups that don't know that. And one of those groups includes the Jews. So now we're going to go over everything that God has given. And if time allows, there will be another video today. If not, the next one will come. I do have a few that are speaking to the very highly prophetic times that we are in. And those issues, they have to be handled. This is not a blog that is rooted in, let me watch the TV. Let me synthesize my own personal thoughts on geopolitical happenings, international relations, the ascendancy of some nations and the fall to the bottom. A lot of people, they simply don't know the God that they're following. A lot of Christians appear odd. If God speaks on celebrities, then they will say, oh, we can't pay our bills. But then God is interested in Beyonce. Beyonce falls under this simple heading of an idol. God doesn't tolerate idols. God killed the president of a country in the Bible simply because the people were praising him. And they weren't even praising him with genuine praise. They were gaslighting him because they wanted to praise him and make him feel very high because they had they had ulterior motives for things that they wanted to present to him later in like political dealings. So they wanted to gas him up, make him feel soft, make him feel himself a little. And then later they were going to approach him to put their request to him. And then because they had been pleasant to him during his speech, they were hoping that he would give them the same quarter that he gave them. But that praise alone, and the fact that the Bible says that in his heart he was receiving the praise, right there, the Bible says an angel struck the man and he died. It was later found that he was basically eaten up by worms. This man died of a massive parasite infection. His bowels were consumed by worms. But the Bible tells us that this physical thing, what the doctors found when they did his autopsy, worms, the Bible tells us that it came from an airstrike from heaven. An angel struck the man down. Whether the angel struck him with a hand or struck him with a sword, it's immaterial. Heaven put an end to his life because of idolatry. And in 2025, a massive amount of Americans are walking around shocked, like they never heard that God will kill an idol if you do too much. They buried the idol, and then they're like, you shouldn't speak ill of the dead. What dead? What are you talking about? How dare you suggest that I tone down my knowledge of the Bible just because you're a creep who doesn't read yours? Aren't you odd? The Bible is the supreme book. The Bible is the blueprint. The Bible is the original kitchen recipe that the wise always refer to so that they can know exactly where are we? Where have we turned? What corner have we turned? What plunging landslide are we on? When do we actually hit the bottom of the sea and keep going deeper into our judgment? The Bible is a 24-hour broadcasting station that does not pause because you have tears in your eyes for odd things. It does not. The Bible doesn't also require anyone else to be respectful or to tolerate you gaslighting them because you think you have the right to demand other people to support what you believe when what you believe can't be found in the Bible to begin with. The Bible has no place for idols. The Bible says that idol worshippers are a useless bunch of people. So imagine useless people trying to berate you and tell you to shut up. Aren't you odd? And so on this iconic Rosh Hashanah, I'm sorry, I can't give you the special number. There's always a special number for each Jewish New Year. Right now, I just don't know what it is. We are examining a dream that the Lord has titled the Little Brown Book of the Jews. But the thing is that when I was asking the Lord, Father, what is in that brown book? What's in the book? He says that book is the histories of the Jews, according to them. It's a ledger. It's a registry, he says. It's a carefully compiled and handwritten testament of truth, world truth, spiritual truth, eternal truth, according to them. Let me tell you something that I learned from this TikTok that I didn't want to go on. When the Lord first asked me to go on TikTok, I was very disappointed in my soul. I didn't see myself as that sort of person. The Lord knew the disdain that I had for what I believed were cat videos on the internet, which is odd because YouTube's first video was a video of a cat. But I digress. When the Lord said to me, you're not using the tools of your generation, which is how he started me on this entire multimedia journey that has resulted in the Master's Voice being on almost 15 platforms so far and growing. We are constantly looking for ways to include other languages and other faiths because the truth of these prophecies is not just for American people. It's not just for us here who are in the United States. The truth that is in these prophecies, the true representation of the God of the Bible, has captivated people on all parts of this world. And well, it should, because I've always said that when it comes to the Bible, it's not, well, that's not what I learned and that's not the way it means. The Bible is a very simple book. And if I had to give the Bible a slogan, the Bible slogan is one band, one sound. It's not 50 bands. It's not 50 sounds. The Bible is one band, one sound. When a true Christian is talking, someone in Pakistan can listen and lock in, because it's the true Bible. It's the true scripture. It's the true Jesus that is coming out by the impetus of the same Spirit. And that person as far afield as Fiji. There are people watching me in Queensland, Australia, and there are people watching me in a country as small as Fiji. It doesn't matter. When people hear the word of the Spirit coming out with power, they will always lock into it. One band, one sound. The time period that we have come to now requires truth. That's why the Lord interrupted the broadcast in the middle and say, tell them to get the truth before they are actually destroyed by how many lies are in the world. And the Lord asked me to go to TikTok. I was distressed. I was distressed because I thought, Lord, you know how I feel about that place. All they're doing is just scrolling. I didn't even really have an interest in Instagram. I always call it the place where people just take pictures of their coffee, because when Instagram first came to my knowledge, that's all people were doing. Just taking pictures of coffee with a Bible next to it and saying morning time with Jesus. And I'll be like, what is this? Morning time with Jesus is actually spent with Jesus. Does Jesus know that you're taking pictures of the Bible verse and highlighting and showing the whole world? I thought morning time with Jesus was morning time with Jesus. What are you doing here? How come we have access to morning time with Jesus? What's wrong with you? I always used to ask myself, what kind of secret place is this? Because nobody will know morning, afternoon, or evening, or midnight time with Jesus when it comes to me, because the time I'm spending with Jesus is his time. It's taking place in the secret place. Why should anyone know about it? But I went there, and it was like going into a river full of crocodiles for a very, very, very long time. That's what it takes to be a pioneer. When you take Jesus into a space like that, where people are have less than 10 seconds to see if they want to listen to what you have to say, it can be very challenging. But I persevered. I built up that thing to, I had 171,000 followers, and then they took it away and I have to start again. But the benefit of TikTok is that TikTok shows me on how many levels and through how many harmonics this is. Vertically and horizontally, the prophecies that I have are, God's prophecies are so true. They're so rich. But the level that social media adds is the living proof to see it. Social media adds the fact that Jews tunneled up in this city in 2024. After I brought the Lord's prophecies, from the ones that he gave me January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. 3 or 4 days later, a massive scandal broke that mainstream media in this country never covered. Because why would American media ever expose the Jews? Why would the co-opted, Jewish-owned, Jewish-run mainstream news in the United States, that is nothing more than the controlled monkey clapping of what the Jews want to cover, why would an American TV station ever covered the fact that there's a network of tunnels running all over this city, and that they come up from under the biggest synagogue in this nation that is owned by Chabad, Chabad, whether it's Chabad or Chabad, immaterial to the matter at hand. Mainstream media failed to cover one of the biggest Jewish scandals that we've seen in this city, where all the Jewish scandals get kept quiet and buried. And I was stunned, because if you're waiting for the TV to show you what this group of people do in this country that they own and run, it's not going to happen. They fought the cops. I was even surprised that the cops made an appearance, because New York City police are told to look away when the Jews are involved. Do you know how? The Jews have their own private police force. See, let's look at the hypocrisy, because Yah has told me to speak. In New York City, one of the biggest, most cosmopolitan, most powerful cities of the United States, New York State and New York City in particular, demand and usually manage to get a huge chunk of the federal budget, because the federal government understands that this city is a hook in the heart of the nations. People dream about coming here just for a holiday. They dream about walking through Times Square. They dream about having an iconic New York concrete jungle where dreams are made of experience. They want to take pictures. They want to flood their socials with the fact that, hey, people back there in Djibouti, I'm in New York. Where are you right now? It's a flex. But under this city, there exists a network of tunnels. And the Jews are the ones who have access to those tunnels. And the mainstream media did not cover that story, but TikTok locked that story down. People standing on the streets of New York City were filming as Jewish people in that familiar hat, not the yarmulke, but the other one, the bowler hat, were popping up through the sewer system. You hear me? And running away. The cops actually went to the synagogue to investigate. I don't know what called them there. Some say that it was a report of a few of the rabbis who actually have human consciences, and they reported some of the practices of the Jews. That what they're doing with all those circumcisions, what they're doing with the foreskins is not okay. That children were being harmed, and those people broke rank. They broke their, we're so humble, we're so meek, we're so gentle. They broke that external thing that they project to the rest of the nation, and they fought those cops to prevent them having access into the tunnels. And they went into the tunnels and they found a lot of stuff in there. And part of what they found is mattresses with blood stains on them and children's toys. Who has a good theory as to why children's toys are in a tunnel? Who knows? Who can guess? Because this is a land of human traffickers, blood drinkers, child oppressors, child sodomizers, child rapists. There is nothing the average American male enjoys more than a small child's backsides. And this is from the poorest level of the demographic all the way up to the White House. Get mad, I don't care. Remember, this is not donor funded. There's nothing you can do to me. I'm speaking on behalf of the Most High, who is sick of the hypocrisy, the lies, and the monstrous face of America that always sits behind Miss America makeup. I am a queen, and no man can harm me. America's a monster, a man-eater, and the man she likes is actually kids, small children, boys for preference, but with little girls right behind that. They fought the cops. I was surprised that the cops attended, because in America, here in New York City, it is tolerated for the Jews to have their own police force. Did you know that out there in Arkansas? Did you know that here in New York City, that there are panda cars, cop cars, painted in the identical colors of the city's cars, so that when you see that car go by, unless you actually lock in and see that it's not written NYPD, if you just see it go by the corner of your eyes, you would just think, oh, that's the cops. It's not the cops. They have their own police force, and they are tolerated by New York State and the federal government to operate a separate system to investigate crime in their community. How safe would you feel if you were the mother of a child who was getting sodomized by the rabbi, and then all your complaints, if you ever made them, would go on the desk of a police force whose job was to protect the rabbi who was sodomizing your child? They keep it all in-house. The only reason that NYPD will get involved is when the thing is so egregious, so loud, it's such a big crime that it would look bad on the city of New York if they actually let them investigate themselves. Have you ever heard of the rats investigating the rats and bringing about cat justice? Is that possible? Yet in the same way, in this same New York City, it was revealed, I think in 2021, by this time, all my Russia and China prophecies were well established. It was revealed that here in New York City, New York was taking money from the Chinese government to allow Chinese cops to operate here without the oversight of the American cops. Yes, China also had a police force here. And I remember when that thing became known, Americans wanted to tear their skin off. How can you tolerate China to have Chinese cops in our nation? They're the enemy. How can Chinese cops, exactly the way you see in these Jackie Chan movies? Chinese people had cops here, autonomous cops. I didn't say that they were cops who came here and decided to become American citizens, and then they were partnering them to say, let's learn on the job with an American cop. No. They had their own stations, their own cars, their own everything, and they were also operating an autonomous police force here in the city of New York. But when people in America found out about it, they were ready to lynch somebody. But to this day, the Jews are quietly, oh, how they know how to be quietly operating an independent police force that handles all crimes in-house, that does not share jurisdiction or share files or share even how they settle things with the city. These are things that I found when I went to the place that I thought was not quite my style. You live in a nation that is completely taken over by the most powerful lobby in the world. If you have not sat at your house one day and asked yourself, I remember Celestial had this prophecy about political people that was called What You Never Heard Before. And I remember that she was talking about how when the senators are about to vote, God was showing her how they would just come and they would just hand them an envelope. And then they would open the envelope and inside they would see pictures of them with a boy that they slept with in Vegas 3 months ago, and they didn't know that the boy was paid for by the U.S. government because they know that the senator is happily married but fully gay in his little gay soul. And that when he met the boy downstairs and he thought the boy cute, and the boy was strongly signaling that he found the crusty old senator cute. And then the boy suggested, would you like to come up? And then he did indeed want to come up, and he went up, and the room was a room that had been set up hours before by a team with tiny little spyglass cameras on every conceivable angle. And they got little old Mr. Senator from every possible angle. Took those pics. He went back to his room, then flew back to his wife 3 days later and had no idea that there was a dossier of glossy 8x10 color images of him doing what his dear wife and his constituency, and in fact the American people, would never tolerate if they knew. And when you have that man like that, no matter what they vote on, no matter how long he stays in his seat, you've got that man for life. That man will vote any way you want him to vote. This is what God showed me. If you can look at America breaking down, the average American goes to have a baby, they're like, hello, your bill is 73 trillion before tax. But Israel has universal health care. A lot of them don't work. They live off the taxpayer money that America has constantly been funding them. That's a state that is actually funded by the taxpayer dollars of this country. And all I have to say is, old people, what have you been doing? Like, honestly. Reagan era people, like, what were you thinking? Why does it take your children that wear Crocs and long socks to show you the heinousness of the fact that your millennial children and Gen X children cannot afford homes? They're renting, they're sharing apartments, and Gen Z has already lost all hope of even being able to pay a single bill in a recurrent pattern to set up credit that is decent for them to even participate in this economy. What were you thinking as this government and the government before it and the government before it and the one before that and the one before that kept calling sums like 4 billion, 8 billion, 12 billion to donate to a bunch of people whose only claim to fame is how they have perfected grift? What were you thinking as you steadily, generation by generation, decade by decade, bankrupted the nation? Because a huge amount of this so-called $3 or $4 trillion deficit that the American people have to pay back in forms of debt, you racked it up by making donations to the people of the Little Brown Book, the people of the false history, the people of the help us. We're facing imminent attack. Iran is building a weapon and they will reach completion in 6 months. Imagine one dude, because it is one dude, Benjamin Netanyahu. Imagine one man scamming you for 25 to 30 years, telling you that the other people are imminently building, quickly about to realize any minute now. They're weeks away. How can somebody be weeks away from doing something for the last 25 to 30 years? Like, what time travel magic Harry Potter wizardry is this? You've been scammed in a way that must feel painful if you've managed to last this long in the video. But the thing is that God is higher than your emotions, and God wants to know if you're simply going to live scammed forever, or do you have the humility to actually go back to the drawing board? First of all, before you even have a conversation with your children as to where all the money that you dropped in the church basket that should have been making their lives better, right? But every time they said, she's going to take up an offering for God's people in Israel. The people in Israel are not God's people. They're actually God's enemy, a people that he says all the time that he's going to annihilate and destroy. And he's so serious about it that he says that when they're on the run and they're running and they're looking for sanctuary in other countries, you, the country that gives them sanctuary, he's going to destroy you along with them. I've always told you that when the judgment is coming and you put your hand in front of it, oh, Jews, run here, it will be judgment incoming, hand destroyed. You cannot stand in front of, when God is pursuing his enemy, then you want to stand up like a rock. Of course, I'm excluding America from that because America doesn't listen. We don't have the general comprehension here to listen to anything that God says. And that's why we have the worst punishment of all that you can find in Revelation 18. But to think that you can harbor an enemy that God himself is hunting, it just shows that whoever does that, you don't have wisdom. And it doesn't mean necessarily that that nation would be stupid. What it means is that that nation will hear the caution of the Lord and ignore it, thinking it to be the mere ramblings of a woman on the internet, until one day we wake up and we look at something that has bombed half of your country. And then we will be like, oh, it must have been the asylum proclamation that they made a year prior. I bet they thought that God wasn't serious, but now look at that. The entire Jewish quarter is bombed, but also half of the country that gave them asylum. I guess God was serious after all. For the Lord, in a sleeping state, to come to a person and the person sees themselves on a broadcast saying, it's a big idea. It's a construct. You know what a construct is? A construct is something that somebody puts together. Men like Henry Kissinger sit around a table. The Bilderberg Group, the Council of Foreign Relations, of which the Clintons are card-carrying members, along with many other people that you know, like the Bushes. Like this name that just came to my mind and wouldn't leave my head. Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh. Who's he? I guess when we all go to Google after this, we will find out who he is. That man's name just came to my mind, and it won't leave my mind. And I haven't had time to look up who the man is. But this man's name came to me. Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh. And so, people like that love big ideas. It's safe to call them big white ideas, because the ideas of people like this never include the safety, the protection, or the well-being of anyone who doesn't look like them. They create far-reaching agendas to get rid of everything that they don't think is necessary to an enjoyable life on earth. And they include, without any thought for where they might find these materials that they need to make their Lego house of dreams. They include resources that they may not have, but they're never bothered if they don't have the resources, because they know where to get them and they don't mind killing to procure them. America doesn't mind destroying the Venezuelan economy, which they're already busy with right now, simply because the people have found oil. You can't be this close to the United States and find oil and actually make it public and think that you're going to have peace. That's a pipe dream. This is an oil stealing nation. This is the nation that was born with a straw in her mouth to suck up the oil on earth to fund what she wants. It doesn't matter that America doesn't have all the oil that she needs, or that she doesn't actually want to destroy her topography by fracking or digging, and oil is available anywhere else. She'll just kill everybody like she did in Iraq and then set up an eternal pipeline by claiming that she's leaving a peacekeeping force, which is just black rock in a dress. This is what happens here. But the problem is that previous generations, as you see them presented in the dream, they'll listen to cries for help from the little book of lies. And then they will say, I need to call my senator. I need to call my congressman. I need to call my alderman. I need to call the mayor. I need to call someone, because there's a disease that is time-honored in America, and that disease is known as moral superiority. Here in America, we love the idea that we are so moral, so good, so bound to ideals of freedom and liberty for all. And yet, this is the nation whose initial constitution had to be amended because she was saying that black people were only 3 parts of a whole person, right? So you see a whole person in front of you, like myself, but then you have to slice off 2 pieces of the salami so that you can stand tall and not feel threatened by myself also being afforded whole personhood. So much for moral superiority, because you can't be a bigot and also feel morally superior. For some reason, those 2 concepts, as the Greeks would look at them, they cancel each other out. So you need to pick one and run with it. But in America, they're seamlessly blended. This is a nation that went to church every Sunday and then lynched people from Monday to Saturday. The lynchers sitting right up front, the sheriff included, sheets off, reading from hymnals, or singing from hymnals and reading from the good book. Then Monday to Saturday, Hunger Games, but morally superior in their minds. Then when you are told that there's deep ingrained DNA level schizophrenia in the country, then you come to my video and click thumbs down. Why? Because the truth makes you itch like flea powder on the back of a dog with a mange. That is why. We love the concept of being good people here. And yet, less than 6 years ago, this would be in 2020, during the outbreak of COVID, the internet actually showed us who we live with, as Americans thought themselves such good people that they began to say in their own Facebook post that they hope that everybody else who wouldn't take a vaccine would catch COVID and die. So you're so morally good, so Christ-minded, that you will come on your own, I got my vaccine, it's over your profile picture. And then you would start to type things regularly, like, I hope they all catch COVID and die. And this same person, pre-death, that means if she's not confronted with the massive personage of Jesus Christ asking, why are you so infernally wicked? And why is your tongue like the viper, the devil? That person would sit with her best friend and just say, I just think it would be great if I hope they don't get vaccinated. I hope they don't take it. I hope they all die. We'll be able to get their homes on the market cheaper. Love the idea of a thing, but yet in real life, the nation, the people in the nation of America don't even know what a thing like moral superiority is. Don't even know what it is. President of Colombia having to display to the American people what moral superiority is. A brave man. I hope a fly doesn't sting him and he doesn't die of CIA cancer. Standing at the United Nations yesterday, delivering a blistering address, saying that the President of the United States lacks diplomacy, that he is a man who only believes in killing and tyranny. How embarrassed are you that a foreigner is able to peg who's elected by the vast majority of evangelicals in this country? Is you, Marcus Rogers' crew, Tiffany Montgomery crew, everybody in the Christian space that's here on us, the internet, right? We're the lowest tier, the POVO. Everybody and their grandmother was told by Jesus Christ that this is the man that God was using to bring in the golden age. Now the golden age has them dragging Mexican people, Haitian people, Jamaican people, anybody else from their homes, clinging to the feet of their wife that they will never see again because he's going to go and drop them off in South Sudan. The Colombian president had to point out to the entire United Nations that it is time that they break the spell of America's wickedness, because it is clear that the leader of America does not understand diplomacy. He does not understand human rights. He does not understand basic human dignity. He only understands, the man said, how to kill and bring about tyranny. And he said we can no longer sit here and deal with this man because diplomacy has failed. This is a 2021 prophecy that I made in September of 2021 that is called Pushback and Provocation of the Nations, where I said that the nations will stand up and tell America to her face who she is, what she does, and that everybody is tired of it, that they're going to utterly dismiss her as a global player. And that, I said, will be the start of seeing American influence, American power wane. You know why? You can't even manage to be a decent bully if the kids aren't interested in being bullied by you anymore. Can you imagine a playground full of people and you walk up to try and be a bully on one kid? That kid turns and starts walking away and all the other kids are like, yeah, he's boring. How can you be Biff from Back to the Future if you don't have an audience? Is it possible? If you are sitting in America and you don't understand that Israel must have tape on every single person in the Senate, or at least 90% of them, and that's why you have the nation that you have, the policies that you have, the governance that you have. The nation is going down the tubes. And then on social media, you're seeing pictures of 250. Did you hear me? Did I say 12? Did I say 22? Did I even say 56? 250 members of Congress flew to Israel recently just to do who knows what. And Israel made sure to take a picture to show the entire world how much it's got Americans in its pocket. See them all sitting and grinning like labubus around this one man sitting in the center as if to send a message. I own you, America. And he does. At least he has up till now. He absolutely has up till now. Previous generations made sure of that. They sent their taxpayer dollars, their pensions, and then the little bit that the IRS let them keep, they dropped it into white nationalist, black conservative, brainwashed liberal church offering baskets. We're blessing Israel. God said, who blesses Israel, he blesses you. Where's that Bible verse? Where is it? Because the verse is actually pray for the peace of Israel. And the Israel that needs peace are the people that you are stepping your boots on in this nation. Israel is everywhere, but the one in the United States, they've still got Farmer Brown's boot on their neck. His knee is on their neck. That little brown book, y'all told me, is a carefully curated collection of histories according to the Jews. It's all their schemes. It's all their plots. It's all their talking points. It's all their storylines. It's all their victim history, victim revisionist history. That's what's in that little brown book. It goes everywhere with the boss man. He reads from it to gaslight the nations, to squeeze them with the memory of 6 million Jews. And yet I'm sitting in front of you having no idea what the population census was back in that day, but telling you that Yah showed me as a father leaving his study to go and attend to urgent business, maybe a visitor in the front room, maybe a call that he has to take. He leaves and his young daughter comes in. This is dad's study. This is where dad does his things. It's inviting and it's warm, and inside it smells like my father. Looking over his things, paper spilling out everywhere, books everywhere, papers everywhere, and then on the table, a book, a piece of a book sticking out, and you bend and look at it, and it says, it is a mathematical and a statistical impossibility that the Jews had the population that they claim they had to have easily let 6 million people go into gas chambers and die. Couldn't tell you where that information exists, but what I can tell you is that information exists somewhere. It is real. The same way that I sat 6 years in the past and I looked across the distance and I said, I see Vlad and he's everybody's choice. I see Xi Jinping and he's the man of the moment. Have you seen the way that China is so calmly and quietly in their immaculate diplomatic style threatening Israel right now? Because Israel is trying to get America into a war. Israel is trying to bait the United States into the war that she desperately wants to fight on Iran in the Middle East. And China's just hanging out like that cool guy that doesn't really like to pick sides, but he hates to see bullying. And China and Russia had made it very clear that Iran should just holler. Holler if you need us. And Israel hates that. And America's looking at Iran. America's already seen, as I told you in 2021, looking across the distance. For those who wonder, how does she do it? I do it because God can see. The owner of the study with all the books and the papers, and I said, a man so busy, so many things that he's working on. He's working on them, and then he tells me, this will be, and that will be, and that will be. And then I come and tell you, this will be. And then you don't believe me, and then time passes. And then eventually we land up at that distance place that I saw across time. Seeing it across time before it comes to pass. Then one day we're in that time period. And now we're looking at an Iran that actually wants America to know that she's feeling froggy and she's going to jump. All America has to do is pat the water a little bit and Iran will jump. So America's looking at a person who has been through so much that has let her know, if you want it, we can go. And it's not worth it for America to get involved in a war with Iran. That's why the president was livid. That's why the president was being his usual self and using 4-letter words. Both of them didn't keep the ceasefire agreement. Why? Because President Trump doesn't want to be hated by the American voter base that he just got done fooling with the looky-loo in the elections. He doesn't want those people to get enraged at him when the false prophets told them, vote for him because God showed us that he will bring in a golden age. Then the buffoons went and voted for him. And then he came in, no gold in sight, except his golden statue that now stands in the nation. Right? But he doesn't want to alienate them by going into an actual real war. He just wants to be able to throw the word Biden in front of them, because throwing the word Biden in front of them 6 to 8 times in a speech is all that's needed to just zap them in their brains and stop them from thinking critically. That's why he didn't back Israel as much as previous administrations would have backed them with boots on the ground if they even cough. You do know that the entire war that Israel wages, the whole of the war is fought with American weapons. You know that they don't actually have anything, right? You know that it's just, I don't know, what's it called? Tomahawk? Tactical? You know that this country is basically supplying that country with everything that they act so big and bad. Imagine going to a party and showing off and everything you're wearing from head to toe is your older sister's fit. All of it. It's her clothes, it's her makeup, it's her shoes, it's her blush. The only thing that maybe you have that's yours is just the underwear, and that is out of sight. Everything in sight belongs to your older sister, but you're at the party looking like Sheena Easton, right? Appearing great, but fighting a war of borrowed weaponry that people who can't afford childbirth in your donor nation are paying for and have paid for decade after decade after decade without a murmur, believing themselves to be endeared of the Christ. Because if I bless Israel, God will bless me. That's the Christian mindset. And then, of course, the political mindset is these people actually present a doorway for us into the Middle East, and the way that the Saudis look at us and the way that the Iranians look at us, we would never be able to have a milky toe in that region. And so it's strategic for us to defend this little toadstool, because this little toadstool can continue to operate as our doorway into a region that we don't belong in. So the political side is doing it. The military industrial complex, who just like to bomb other people. They just like to use their toys on other melanated peoples and kill them for fun, because that's what some frat boys grow up and like to do. They're just happy to have a place to constantly ship weapons and then watch other people get bombed in hospitals, get bombed while going for aid. There's a video I saw that perfectly backs this up. When I do a compilation, America in Words and Pictures, you will see a video of Palestinians that went to get aid, and then the Israelis are just shooting bullets over their heads until the people literally have to lie down and hold the dirt. So they go to get aid. They're waiting for international aid to come. But for some curious reason, the IDF, right, the Israeli Defense Forces, are just just shooting bullets into the sand like the true psychopaths that they are, just to watch the people shiver and shake and bow and cower. And I thought to myself, this is the kind of thing that America funds, because America does this thing herself when she goes to occupy other countries. So it wouldn't be a problem for her to fund other people to be able to do this. Is nobody concerned except Gen Z at the type of brain that American evangelicals and the American political lobby continues to want to uphold? I just have to ask, especially for the so-called Christians, which heaven do you think you're entering as you are? This is very, very important to me, because that blood that was shed forms a bloody doorway, narrow in scope and stature, through which a man must divest himself of all his earthly loves, his earthly supportership, his earthly partisanship. A man must shave down to the skin he was in when his mother brought him out in order to walk through that door. And some of you are 63 megatons wide. 63 megatons wide. T.D. Jakes wide. Charlie Kirk wide. Donald Trump double wide. And this door that some thought, it's September 23rd. The bloody door will appear and we're about to enter through to be with the Lord forevermore. It's this door that you think that your obese, politically charged self, Republican charged self, Democrat charged self, It's this tiny door that will appear in time. Is this door that you think that will admit one that you're going to go through as you are, filled through with the things you think, the things you secretly believe, the things that I'm starting to see appear all over my blog like roach droppings. This book contains revisionist history, the little brown book of the Jews. It contains a false Holocaust that they never experienced because the Lord says that they never had the numbers. I may not know where the population census of that time can be found. Excuse me, please. I may not know where the population numbers can be found. I may not know where the articles from the past that actually contain the true population numbers of the Jewish people were before they formed a state. I may not know their points of origin. I may not know where they lived in the world before they claimed that Germany massacred them in ovens. That the German people sometimes say, you know, we never saw these things, we never knew. And they're not gaslighting, they're literally confused because they lived in the areas and they just said that they never saw the massive smokestacks of burnt bodies that rose to the ground. Okay. I may not know where these things are, but I do know one thing. I know that God showed me a man named Vladimir Putin and showed me how his mind works and showed me that the brain in his head was better than all the American politicians' brains, and that he's a man so dedicated to long-term strategy, a man so patient at waiting for his plans to bear fruit that he spends his time playing chess against himself, and that he can play the black side as if he wasn't going to go and play the red side. He can completely forget about whatever moves he wants to make, and he will play for the black as great as he can, and then he will go and play for the red as good as he can. And this is a brain that is able to section itself off and pursue multiple paths of policy at once. And now this man is in the spotlight, as I saw years ago, and there's just no explanation for that except that God knew, and I don't know the man. I've never seen the man. In the same way, I told you that the army of Russia and the army of China will overrun the earth in the last days. And all the American people laughed at me. That'll never happen. We have the best military in the world, and now nobody can breathe because of that Labor Day Chinese display. I didn't know that. I saw a missile so big it looked like a house, but they were rolling it on a flatbed. And the reporter was choking with excitement. He said that that missile was only an urban legend, a myth. He said people only talked about it. We've only heard whispers about it. I didn't know it was real. And there was the missile, I said, as fat as a house, rolling on a little wagon. I looked at the thing and I understood that that's even part of what they have. That's not the whole. But I said this in 2019. So therefore, I am completely unruffled, unbothered by telling you that I saw in a book on the Lord's desk that it is mathematically impossible for the current Jewish state of Israel to have claimed that 6 million of them perished because God said they didn't have the numbers to have been able to spare that many people and still exist as a people. They didn't have it. They would be smaller than the Philistines that God wiped out from existence. If that were the case, I'm completely rested in the certainty of what he said, because I know that somebody who probably has 16 letters after his name is going to pop up one day and do a flow chart that will be on Piers Morgan Live. And that's when people will believe me. I won't care. I will just look and think, oh, prophecy fulfilled, and just clip it. Because whatever God tells me, I know is so. All these things, the movies with the little stripes, it's a lie. All these wars that you don't see them in the forefront of, they're funding it. They're the reason that you only have a single tower downtown in Manhattan instead of 2. This is the kind of stuff that is on that I'm posting on my Instagram story, my TikTok story, and my Facebook story. America told right? That steel, reinforced steel, was hit by a plane and the building completely burnt down. The building was annihilated. The heat, the steel. And yet at the same time, in the midst of all that fire, 9 people's passports, or whatever number they were, 9 people's passports, paper passports that must have come from the Avengers multiverse, the passports didn't burn. They stayed so safe that even the plastic on top of them wasn't crinkled. Then when I tell you that this government will false flag you into dementia, people want to argue. And that is because you have your sacred cows in this country. And yet the sacred cows are the result of the TV that you worship. The TV has told you, just like the algorithm can be trained, the TV has trained you. The TV has trained you to think that you are morally superior. The TV has trained you to think that you are militarily superior. The truth of the matter is that other people have just been amassing their strength and they just didn't want to fight you yet. But now the hour has come not only to fight you, but to beat you. And then all of a sudden you see some defense person, I don't know what his name is, China must be ready to dialogue. I almost choked on the food I wasn't eating. So you never wanted to dialogue. When you were getting ready to go and rape and pillage the Iraqi people, all you said was, we have the WMD evidence, trust us. And then on top of that, you reinforced the threat by making it an either or vote, right? You're either with us or against us, President Bush said. And then everybody was thinking of all the aid money and everybody was thinking, well, I don't want to end up like Cuba and Iran. So, I'll just, go ahead, America, right? That was what you have done all of your human existence as the United States of America. But now that the chest hair on the chest of China has chest hair, their chest hair has grown chest hair, with military and technological supremacy, all of a sudden, America's on TV. China needs to be willing. China needs to now be willing. They have to. Can you imagine? You're outclassed. You're about to get beat, and you're still proud. You don't say, it's our desire that the Chinese be willing to dialogue. You're saying China must dialogue, or else. Or what? I'm not even the Chinese delegate. I'm just here trying to live my little life in Brooklyn. But I'm just going to go ahead and be devil's advocate. China must dialogue with you militarily, or what? Or what? Or what? It's always good to take the thought to its ending. China must be willing to dialogue militarily to avoid international conflict, or what? Or nothing. The answer is, or nothing. And so I don't know who this man is that has been lying across the images, lying across the ages. But it would appear to me that this man simply represents the Jews, the Jewish state, the Jewish idea, the Jewish policy state that has existed all this time. Constantly in dreams, Yah presented this man as lying and gave me the understanding that this man was lying to the whole world. This man was presenting false facts that came off the papers that he would read on the broadcast, as well as double lying, reading from the Jewish registry, the Jewish histories, as it were, according to the Jews, which may or may not mirror facts in real life. He read them in Hebrew, which to most ears will sound like reading something that's canon. It's the oddest thing to me. You have a Christian that can't even wipe their nose in Christianity, but then they will want to come and ask me, Celestia, what do you think of the Talmud? I'm not thinking about the Talmud. I'm wondering, how did you get into Christianity? Like, who let you in? Whoever the guy is that actually checks ID before people come into Christianity, I need to have a word with him. I'm not wondering what is in the Talmud. I'm wondering how the bouncers of Christianity let some people in. Because if the bouncers are going to behave like this, we need to change them for our own safety as real believers. You can't rub your nose and blow it out properly to understand the histories in the book of Genesis and how they relate to where we are now in real life. But you have time to read the Talmud, which is the Jewish reinterpretation of all the precious things that were not given to them, but were given to the real children of Israel, who themselves barely have time to read their history. You talk about their pain, you talk about their captivity, they're mad. Why? Because they're allergic to going to read how many times they were unfaithful to God. They're allergic to actually going back and reading the terms and conditions of them being God's special people. The terms and conditions are laid out in Deuteronomy 28. I'm a lawyer. If there's a contract in operation, the contract is working in the earth, and you keep complaining that, I'm getting a rough deal. And someone goes, read the contract. And you're just like, no, I'm sick of it. I'm going to make a TikTok and I'm going to talk about how this happened and how that happened, and read the contract. Why don't you want to read the contract? Are you afraid of what Deuteronomy 28 says? Are you afraid of the fact that Moses read out only 15 verses of blessing and then almost 68 verses of curses that would follow you and your children until you die, and the children died and their children died if you didn't fix it? You haven't fixed it. Why are you mad? Did you think that the holy contract would go away because you get angry, because you make TikToks, because you form yourself into lobbies and groups? Do you think that the NAACP can help you against Deuteronomy 28? Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, even Malcolm X and Martin Luther King can't help you against Deuteronomy 28. There's a song that says, the winner takes it all. The Bible takes it all every single time. The only sound-minded people are the people who read the scriptures and lift their eyes. Notice, you're not sound-minded if all you read is the Bible and then you don't lift your eyes and see how the Bible relates to real life. God gave you someone who is able to look at real life and the Bible and show you where they kiss, where they meet, where they link, where they join into one seamless story that has never changed. Any Christian who thinks God doesn't belong in politics doesn't understand God. God rules in the affairs of men. That's a Bible verse that you should know means kings rise and kings fall at the command of God. Nobody rises to power, I don't care how wicked he is, unless God has said so. And in this case, America, you begged for the person who's in power now. You cried for him. You rolled down on the ground and put dust on your heads that you wanted a king. And the Lord said, you got the king you asked for. He just never told you beforehand when you were begging that this is a king of nails. Only the people who honor the word of God will find themselves honored back. And so, you see then, certain elements that completely link with real life. A man that was on an old TV, since the TV had a bubble-shaped pattern inside a square box. You only see these kinds of TVs, I guess, in cartoons. I've never actually seen a TV like that. I only see it in the old cartoons. They will have a box and then the bubble and then the two antennas and then the two wooden legs. Exactly like I mentioned in the Jetsons. That's what it looks like. And this man has been on that TV. This is not the TV of when Israel was established as a state. This is TV from before that. These people have been lying from before that. This stuff has very close ties to the kind of animosity and, I guess, strong rejection that was inside of Adolf Hitler. And that is because pre-war Germany had the people of Germany in great discontent. I don't know why Americans look across history and they just believe the propaganda that the government and the schools give us here. Our brains, like I said, are trained by the algorithms. And one of the ways that America controls the algorithm of thought in this country is that she rushes back to history, because this is a nation that doesn't like reading. Old Americans love to read. Even the women were informed before they had the right to vote, before they had suffrage and everything like that. They loved books, they loved words, they loved information, and it was an informed population, and therefore the government had to be a lot more straight and transparent because the people always made demands. But now the current generation is stoned on social media, brains trained by the algorithms. People say things like, oh, Gen Z is more visual and everything. A lot of people, even that generation and the ones before them, is that we love to get information in a storybook form, which proves that the mindset here is childish and childlike. Because children love stories, children love images, children love allegories, children like to know who was the dragon in the story. That's the way that children process information. But if Americans could just go back and look in history, the Germans were going broke just the same. The money in the economy had been sucked up by a particular group of people. It would have been the Jews. The ordinary German was struggling just the way you're struggling now. They just didn't have social media to express themselves. There was a lot of discontent in Germany, and that is what brought Hitler to the top. He literally came up based on populism, which is just a popular thought, a wave of shared sentiment. Podcaster funeral, anyone? Shared sentiment arises when a group of people may be genuinely oppressed, or in America, the people who have everything imagine themselves to be oppressed. And the reason they imagine themselves to be oppressed is simply because for a brief shining moment that we are now going to lose, rules were instated, just like in South Africa, that simply told them one small thought that they could barely accept. The thought might have been groundbreaking to those who would benefit if the thought actually got to pass, like it did in the Emancipation Proclamation and in other laws that tried to level the playing field. But the thought was simply this: even Elmo could understand it. You have to share. Cue the nuclear rockets going off in the back as some brains disintegrate. What do you mean we have to share? What do you mean I can't have everything? South Africans know exactly what I'm talking about. To tell the Dutch settlers, sorry, we're here. We're actually more than you. You can't have all the everything. You can't have all the best stuff. We also need to go to school. And when we go to school, please stop forcing us to speak your weird language. To suggest this can cause a meltdown sometimes in the mind of people who don't believe that they were created by God to share anything unless they're sharing among themselves. So nothing really revolutionary happened in the United States if you're looking at it from a totally the rights of man perspective, right? If you're looking at it in, for instance, from the perspective of the old French revolutionaries who were listing out things like they were sitting and writing treatises on the rights of man, the rights of a civil society, how to govern, how to rule, telling a bunch of people that, hey, everybody in the country needs to go to school. Everybody in the country needs to vote. Everybody in the country needs to get a shot at a decent job so that they can be able to build a house. Everybody in the country needs to be able to access credit. If you're going to set up a credit system, you kind of can't use the credit system to penalize certain groups all the time and then constantly bring out the narrative that they can't handle money, they're incapable of sound thought and reasoning, they can't be trusted on the job because they're lazy, they're thieves, they're always conniving, they're kind of aggressive, and therefore you always got to watch them. You got to watch them. It is not revolutionary to come into a room of 11 people and cut a pie into 11 pieces. Like Jesus would be asleep if you tried to suggest to him that this was record-breaking news. That if there are 10 people the pie goes 10 ways. If there are 4 people, guess what? Bigger pieces of pie, because now there's only 4 slices. Jesus would hit the snooze button if you had to make laws to turn a 2-piece pie into all the pieces that reside within your borders. He would be confused why you would have a problem doing this. But we do indeed have a problem with that. The German people were actually losing the means of living in their own country through people who were imports. People who took everything from them and then were lording over them. That's what got, I keep wanting to say another word, but that's what got Hitler into the position. He came up on a wave of, basically people were just tired. That's what made Hitler such a popular alternative. The people were tired. They couldn't control the means of production. They couldn't control the wealth. They couldn't control anything because Shylock had come into the country. As Shakespeare warned so many years prior, Shylock came into the country and leveraged all the means of production out of their hands. Something that the American people, majority demographic in this country, cannot claim simply by dint of the fact that they are not the minority having the means of production taking out of their hands. They're the majority, and they have always held the means of production. They've always set the rules, set the tones, made the laws, and therefore, on the face of it, literally have nothing to complain about. What they're complaining about is being forced to cut the pie into more pieces, because then it means that their piece gets smaller, and it also means something that is anathema to some brains. What do you mean I have to compete for my spot? I'm the best candidate, obviously. Can't you look at me and tell? No one is suited for this job better than me. Why should I have to compete? It's never been that way before. It's never been that way before is not a legitimate form of thinking. If someone was to walk up to the ancient Mayans and say, it is against the laws of God to murder this many people before you go to war. You cannot simply pick 50 people or go and raid enemy tribes, catch 50 people, and then bring them back and roast them and eat them as an offering to the God you claim you are following before you go off to war. Then the Mayans or the Incas then look at you in confusion and say, but it's never been that way before. Who says that true moral fortitude, moral superiority, and adhering to God's laws, which are as clear as salt, works by, I don't want to do it because it's never been that way before? Who said that? At the suggestion of that, that's why America is so loud right now. That's why Stephen Miller is standing with his very questionable self. If you ever wanted to know if what God said about Operation Paperclip is true, that America actually does have living Nazis, go and listen to Stephen Miller's speech. They are evil. We are good. We are the guardians of righteousness, and you are wicked. They will have nothing. America, who's they? Who's they? Because don't make me pause this broadcast and go and get our money and bring it out so we can see where it has a they and a you and a them. Because it says even in the pledge, one nation under God. So where did they and you and them? This is the language of the snake that's getting ready to bite everybody on the throat. Except that this time, when it bites on the throat, it's not going to be means of production, who has and who hasn't. It's going to be how much melanin do you have available? Because then we need to bite. That's why I'm telling liberals now. I'm not on liberal side and on Republican side. My job here is the truth. I'm telling you, you with your liberal sentiments, that believes in equality for all. You that are busy getting arrested, trans people are getting arrested, the gay people are getting arrested, the priests are getting arrested, the average valley girl is getting arrested, protecting the immigrants from ICE. For the purposes of annihilation, they will just say that you are also a minority. You're no more safe than a person like me. That is the flavor of America's final war. It won't be fought white brother to decide how the slaves should be kept. It will be fought along them versus us. You versus we. These are the words of Stephen Miller's own mouth to those who have never actually seen white supremacy in our time, in our modern time. This is who American Christians included have put in the White House. And now all of a sudden they have disappeared from the internet and are attempting to teach love is patient, love is kind. They're trying to act like they had nothing to do with the political melee that we find ourselves in. But I strongly advise that you visit these people and hold them accountable for the things that they said. Nothing comes from nothing. Everything devolves from something. And this is why God will come into the midst to settle things, to bring order. And he's going to start with the people who always take the means of production. The people who are so skilled, honestly, in what they do, that they're the last people that anybody looks at. If you look at how quietly a Jew will blend in, operating from the back, while things are taking place in the front, and only pop up when severe pressure is applied. Notice how this man transformed across the dreams. Please help us. We're in imminent danger. Our numbers are in imminent danger. We need your help. This is happening and that is happening. And towards the end, as soon as I said, I began to see in the dream, the first time I was just annoyed and I thought, I should do something. But then the dream ends. In the second dream, I stand up and I begin to give the proper and correct, non-algorithm controlled viewpoint, the truth from God. Now the man is enraged. Now the man is angry. The Lord is showing. And in the final dream, the man's mask drops completely. The pretense, we're in danger. It's the Palestinians, he said. How many times, older generation, did you sit and hate the people of Palestine for wanting something that you yourselves threw British tea in the harbor for? How much hypocrisy do you think you can leave on your soul and be angry with me and not repent? Do you think the hypocrisy inside you is going to stop me from going to heaven? Or is it going to be a stumbling block against you? How dare you hate those people for wanting to actualize statehood that they finally got 2 days ago? As I said 3 or 4 weeks ago, I said, these people are going to get their statehood, because what I am understanding in my heart from the Lord is that this is the only way that the United Nations can see to allow those people to save their lives from those butchers that America protects. This is what I understand in my spirit, that the United Nations, knowing that this wicked country will constantly veto aid, constantly veto military intervention. She wants to be the only person that has guns and boots and everything else available, but she doesn't want the international community to save those people. I said, what I see is that these people are going to get their statehood because the international community knows their hands are tied, and making them a state is the only way that they can allow them to weapon up and stop this wickedness that America and Israel have been doing on them for 50 years. And now they're a state. Now, as a state, they can stand up and make an address that everybody else is going to take seriously. And you know the bad part about it for you, America? This is a climate where everybody is more willing to take them seriously than you. This is a time where the international community is more willing to take the words of the Palestinian delegates that now have State of Palestine in front of their spot. They're more willing to take what they say seriously then people who are having the mask off, the balaclava off, it's all coming off. And everybody can see how wicked this country is and how willing the United States is to shed human blood in the pursuit of non-human interests. They'll take them seriously. They'll listen to them. When they cry and they say, we need states to stand up for us, Russia will stand up for them. China will stand up for them. And for the first time now, America's going to realize that the pie can get cut a lot of ways that doesn't make her comfortable. That she's not the only person with a pie knife. That other people are tired of her cutting the pie into two pieces. 80% of the pie for America, 20% the entire world has to feed on it. No more of that. Now other people have pie knives. Now that they're a state, the international order has shifted. There's one more person in the kitchen, which means the pie needs to get cut a different way. In America, who has never been used to cutting the pie in any way that is just, will find herself now the one who every time we open our mouths out there, it will be deemed an unpopular opinion. Imagine the president of Colombia. America can just run an operation to Colombia. Right now, that man will die next week. If the Americans felt like it, if Washington felt like it, that Colombian man would drop dead next week. A country like Colombia, I told you that people who don't even have the biggest economies, people who are not running NVIDIA chips, right? I said that those people will stand up and give America a read that's worthy of the deceased Joan Rivers. I said the nations will push back. I said I saw a microphone with voices coming out. Rah, 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 rah. I said the nations will start barking at America because they are sick of her uneven justice, her failed moral superiority. As an American, you listen to this. You truly love this country. I know your skin is itching. I know your skin is itching. It's attacking everything you know. That's all because the algorithm in you is whole. It is whole. It is unbroken. You've never had some of these thoughts in your life that the world is unjust and that you're part of the injustice, that you have protected the injustice, that every single time the injustice was happening, you press the algorithm. Don't fix it. Don't fix it. I like it like this. I like it like this. I like these speeches that talk about bombing other people. Don't fix it. How dare you deny other people's statehood when you all got together, this nation, and threw tea in the harbor? You threw millions of dollars into the water. Do you know the irony of the actual item that you threw in the sea? Do you know what a slap it was in the face of Britain to take the one thing on earth that was designed to absorb water and throw it into the water? It was an almost prophetic act. We know the value of what you came and forced us to grow and are about to take back. You see us as only a colony, a nothing. We only exist at the pleasure of the crown. We're here to serve you. That's who we work for. You tax us unfairly. The one thing that we know that you love, designed to absorb water, you threw it into the water. I mean, when they say poetic justice perfected, that is what it was. And then a few hundred years later, these are the brains that will see a small animal tied up, like a fly maybe, and then take a magnifying glass to make sure that the rays of the sun are concentrated through the magnifying glass to watch the spider or the fly burn to ashes, and then will stand up and say, "My country, 'tis of thee. In God we trust." Which God? Which God is this? Because I know it's not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that you're talking about. It's the God that you follow from Pastor Hagee's church. It's the God that had you saying nonsense this past weekend. Like we always wanted to find the way to get the Holy Spirit to attend a Trump rally, and I think we finally accomplished it. It's a God of psychosis. It's a God that drinks other people's blood and say, tastes like chicken. Israel is going first. You keep clinging to them, you're going with them, because a war is coming. A big fat war that almost every country is going to get involved in. The Lord says the Psalm 83 war is coming. And he says, Israel and Israel, prepare yourself. Two Israels that God acknowledges. He acknowledges the imposters. He acknowledges the fake Jewish state of Israel. And he said, Israel and Israel, true Israel, real Israel, that looks like me, that looks like your last name might be something Latina, that looks Native American, that looks African, that looks Caribbean, true Israel. He says, fall into your ranks. Fall into your ranks. When God tells you to fall into your ranks, he's literally telling you to stop being in the street, to stop being wild, to stop running wild. You can't hear that a war is coming and still be the kind of person who's just thinking about luxury and how do I climb and everything. You have to change even the tiny things like your personal activities and your personal character at work, because you can't afford to lose your job, because rent will go through the roof. We are going to have a war that is going to require Americans to be on rations. If you lose your job, what on earth are you going to do, young man? What on earth are you going to do? 46-year-old woman with 2 children and a man that gets laid off before you, and he can't get work in a shrinking economy. Have you ever lived through a wartime economy? These are the things that the Lord has been saying to me for the last few days. You wake up in the morning and you go to a job where you're solving complex questions. You're dealing with lots of money. There's a lot of pressure on you. Or maybe you work in the service industry. Have a good day, ma'am. You're handing out Happy Meals. Maybe you're an Uber driver. You have to add up. Where am I driving today? I think I'm going to drive in Manhattan because, the turnover is quicker. You have to figure out a lot of things. Do you know what it is to go from figuring out the big questions like how you earn, how you bank, your investments, to it being an excursion with your child? We're going to have to try and hit the stores in Queens, sweetheart, because we can't find toilet paper in Brooklyn. God is even saying to me right now, munitions factories. In the Second World War, when America needed more bombs and more whatever, they put the people to work in factories to make more armaments and everything, because obviously they were needing more. Are you skilled in factory work? Miss 2 MBAs? The Lord is even saying to me, Florence Nightingale, are you ready to be dealing with people whose knee is blown off? Do you have any medical or hospital experience? Because I'm here with my economics degree, my public policy degree, my law degree, and I can be honest and say, I don't know those things. I don't want to see somebody's flesh sticking out at the knee. He's saying to me right now, munitions factories. America will put people to work to produce the things that she need. People will be living on rations. Are you prepared for that? Or are you simply going to be podcasting obliviously until all these things happen to us? The prophecy is 2026 to 2027. America's war years are here. And yet people are still coming here like sets of flies. Are you guys still listening to this false prophet? Is this false prophet still talking? Don't ever expect sympathy from me when we get to where we get. I'm going to keep it businesslike and professional. To the people of God, you know where my heart is. It's for you, to keep you out of an early grave and to keep you out of the claws of the beast system. But I don't ever want anyone to come here and start. If she was more sympathetic, don't start that. You're going to be the first person who actually flies in a parabolic arc and finds out for all of us what's actually at the end of the rainbow. You'll be the first person to report back and tell us what you found there. This is what is coming for us. 2 Israels. One is about to go flamingly down. by putting their hand in a war that they think they will win. Please listen to me, because some psychosis in them, they have stolen the identity of the tents of Shem for so long that, believe me, these people actually think that they are the people of the Bible. I kid you not. They believe it with all their heart and soul. They truly think that they are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when they are not, because they do lie. They are the synagogue of Satan, but they want to suggest that other people are that. But people like Russia know the truth. Russia knows the truth of who these people really are. That is why Russia opened up its archives. Their protected churches and basilicas. They opened it so the public could come in there and see black Jesus and black disciples sitting. This thing is going to cause a mind meltdown once it becomes something that cannot be denied. Once it actually starts to come out all over the place. Right here in America, people are going to have a meltdown to realize that the Israel they were supposed to pray for their peace, they took all the peace away from true Israel. There's no peace for you if you are a certain color living in this country. You won't know genuine peace. You won't sleep without somebody telling you nonsense at the workplace, or nonsense at the grocery store, or nonsense when you go to buy your food. All the historical clips coming up on TikTok, I now came to understand why there's so many of us bunched up north and bunched up in what are so-called metropolitan centers. Because in the metropolitan centers, people were just more concerned with daily life. And do you need anything, Mr. Withers? And that's all. They weren't concerned with letting you know that no matter what you were named, your real name was Boy. That is why as soon as the sharecropper era came in, a lot of people especially sent their daughters to the city centers of this nation, so that the overseers, even though they were no longer owning them as slaves, would not touch you at age 12. By age 12, as soon as your breasts started to grow, your parents would send you to your free aunt and your free uncle up north, just to stop you from being introduced into sexual molestation and sexual activity at age 11. They constantly sent their daughters away, and a lot of the time the women grew up in the urban centers, away from family, away from brothers and sisters, until they became grown women who could then venture safely back home to visit the family. Boys could stay because boys are different. Can you imagine this? And then the sorrow, the pain, the ache of God saying, all this stuff is going to start to rear its head. That's what he was telling me as I was preparing myself today, preparing for the day and thinking, I have to find a moment and bring this prophecy about the Jews out. He was telling me this time, Celestial, when it is done, the 3/5 rule will actually be done in such a way that it will simply be discrimination. I don't know if they're going to put it into law. If he tells me that when I do the prophecy that I said had me in tears, then yes, I will say it. But Yah says that discrimination is going to be the way that it's done. And when I thought about it, it was but the work of a moment for me to understand that if you call it Jim Crow, if you call it slavery, no matter what you call it, it is simply discrimination. You can't drink from this fountain. You can't sit in this part of the bus. You can't go to these educational institutions. You can't have access to credit. Even if we join the army together and we fight the same wars, you're going to sleep in separate barracks from the rest of us. That is just discrimination. Whether you call it apartheid, whether you call it the civil rights era, at the core, everything is just one word, and the word is discrimination. Now you understand why a new president with 50 billion things that he needs to look at, that he needs to fix, one of the first things that he did was to roll away the drinking fountain law. I saw that. I was so curious, but my mind simply could not make the connection because that was the beginning of the year, and I hadn't yet come to this part where God can just tell me. Why would a new president, newly sworn in, facing 1,000 problems in the economy, in the jobs market, in the health sector, in the everything sector, make it his business to make sure that he takes away all the civil rights monuments in the country. He is actively removing all of them and saying that they do not contribute to a peaceful America. Whose peace? Obviously, it's the peace of people who don't want to see the memorials of the trash they did. The kind of memorials they like to enjoy are the ones that take place in big stadiums where they're basically gathered together to do Sig Heil. Taking down every monument, closing every exhibition, closing every museum dedicated to these things. Because with the memory of them gone, all the little babies that are growing up now, unlike the babies who are being gaslit that time period was fun for African Americans and Native Americans, the new group of babies will grow up and be told it never happened at all. There's a pastor on the internet right now that said that he had ordered and kept fighting with the state of Oregon, I think it was, and saying that he wanted Bibles for a class that he's teaching. It was the only way that man could get Bibles into the school. He ordered Bibles for all the people in his class, and he said he wanted Bibles as part of reading materials. And I don't blame him, because if you can bring gay porn and put it on the mandatory reading list for young people in America, you can manage to get Bibles on the reading list for a class that you're teaching. He applied for at least 13 Bibles or so. He said he only got 2. And bless this man's sharp eyes. He went through the 2 Bibles that he got. And he said that it's one of those Bibles where they put in the Pledge of Allegiance, and they put in the Declaration of Independence, and they put in the Constitution. And he said, it's got a Constitution in it, but it's the wrong Constitution. And so I'm listening to understand, what does he mean by the wrong Constitution? And then he says, the Constitution in there, okay, is the one that specifically existed before the Emancipation Proclamation. They put in the old one with the 3/5 rule in 2025. Now, if he received 2 of these Bibles, do you think those Bibles were specially printed for him? Or is there not multiple warehouses of those Bibles waiting to be rolled out into schools so children can learn what the old Constitution was like when America was filled with real humans and fraction humans, 3/5 of a human? And then people with no brains in their head will send me email randomly and tell me, I think you're just racist. A constitution, before it was amended to accept all of the humanity, to accept that everybody in the nation needs a piece of the pie. This is what a white teacher in the middle of the country, wherever he is, I think he said Oregon, but I don't want to put it on Oregon in case it was somewhere else. A white teacher said that he received 2 Bibles with the Constitution in there, without the changes that acknowledged that everybody in America was a human. Because when you're 3/5 of a person, you're not a person, you're a thing, you're an it. And once that's the name on you, ithood, you can then be treated like an it. If this is happening in 2025, and you think that ravening mob from last Sunday was just a friendly send-off of an evangelist, a prophet, I suggest that you don't come out in adult company, because you clearly are not able to process the larger issues on the table that are facing us as a nation. Two Israels, 2 outcomes, and God says that this war will have an effect on both. In Psalm 83, it says that the people cried out to God and said, "Oh Lord, our enemies are surrounding us. Our enemies have ringed us about." And then the psalmist begins to name the enemies for outside Israel, imposters, liars. Their enemies will be all those Arab eyes that are sick of their nonsense. For Israel inside these borders, it's not enemies foreign, it's enemies domestic. And that's why you need to stop doing nonsense. And I'm including Mr. Loving in this warning. If you can see what type of neighbor you have with your little conscience, and you just want to stand up and talk about fairness where you live, God told me to tell you that they will burn your house down the same way that they would burn a black person's house down. Because they won't see you as any different. You know the name that they used to call people like you. The first word starts with an N, and then the second word is lover. You know the name. So you need to be careful about the battles that you're picking. You that has a conscience in a sundown town. You're outnumbered in places like that. You might want to get less chatty, less advocate-y. You just might want to stop it all. At least until you know where God is planning to take things. So 3 times on this day, Rosh Hashanah, with massive celebrations going on that the entire world is riveted to, I am sitting here in the United States of America, in New York City, broadcasting to you that the Lord says that the little brown book of the Jews is a lie. It is revisionist history. It is them lifting themselves up and constantly painting themselves the victim, even though they have the same internal rage and craftiness of Rumpelstiltskin. They have used broadcast, and they have used TV, and they have used media such as major newspapers, global newspapers, to craft a history that the Holy Spirit says is not true, but has nevertheless compelled the world. And that is because the algorithm has trained us. All this information has been put into weepy movies and weepy memoirs, presented to us as fact, and based on nothing more than the person who wrote it said, this is what I wrote before I died. That's it. This is what I wrote before I died. This is what happened to me in the camp as I was wearing the stripy pajamas. And God is like, yeah, not so fast. Not so fast. And so since the days of the bobble TV, the round TV with the square box that uses 2 antennas to catch the signal, all the way up now to where information on the internet can stand up and counter these narratives, Yah says that the man in the brown suit that represents the construct, the idea, the big idea, the Western-made creation that is called the Jewish state of Israel. Since those days until this day, God says that these are dangerous lies, urgently presented before people until they felt compelled to connect, compelled to do something. Let me call my councilman. Let me call the governor. I'm going to see what I can do and get some help over there. You've been scammed. I remember in my old prophecies, God just basically said that the entire college fund of your children, you gave it away in donations, genuinely believing that you were helping people who the government knew that these people were not legitimate. And the governments of the United States, governments, administrations, have always known that it's a lie. But you sent money, you supported it, you became very anxious as you heard how they were under imminent attack from the wicked people around them. It's Palestine, it's Palestine. And the Lord says it's not Palestine. It is not the Palestinians. It's actually them. It's them, and by extension, it is many of you. So, we are a small nation. It is not us, it's them. It's the Palestinians. We are under attack. We need your help. We need you to partner with us. Partner with us is the line of the grifter American church. You can become a partner. Partner with us. Partner with us. And then you send your money to fund dreams that see the Palestinians crying and carrying their only baby, skinny 10-year-old boy. He's not even the right size for a 10-year-old. Now he's been hit by something, some kind of rocket. And now that's the end. The man is running with a tiny, skinny shape. And then as he's running, other people throw a sheet over it. You've witnessed the pain and the helplessness of these people. And that goblin that leads them will stand and say, we take every precaution not to hurt civilians. And yet the civilian deaths, a Chinese dean was reading an Israeli defense person to filth. And he was using the same language. We take every precaution not to hurt the civilians. And the Chinese man, he was barely, when the English is rolling away from you because it's not your thing, he was barely holding the English. I will bring you all these clips. I have maxed out the storage on my phone, downloading these clips to make sure that I don't lose them. He was barely handling the English, but the subtitles were there. He said that cannot be so. Because since October, you have racked up 70,000 deaths. That's bigger than some towns in America. Some towns in America, 3,000 population. Everybody knows everybody else. That man said that cannot be so. That you have taken care to avoid civilian deaths. 70,000 men, women, and children you have killed. You are not telling the truth. How can China, you have lied on China for decades. How can China be showing the world that though they don't believe in Jesus Christ, they have a handle on what morality is? And you, the people who claim that you are saved by grace through faith, you don't. That is why people are attacking social media from the government perspective, because it truly shows the picture of the world as it is. It shows the world as it is, not as the American government says it is. America herself has a little brown book. Maybe we should call it the little red book of America for all the blood that's written in those pages that people say, let's just move on and forget. So this man looks into his book. He reads from it in Hebrew. Then he interprets in English, and then he interprets saying, this is what the thing I'm saying, this is what it means. And God was just showing me, though he turned off the sound, this is lies. This is lies. The Lord using this phrase. And I looked across the distance to show historically they have lied. Up to now, they have lied. And my heart moved to annoyance at the obvious lies of this man, until I was driven to the platform that Yah has given me to speak his truths to whoever will listen and connect with the words of God. After I brought out the message of the Lord, delivered it to you, showed you where it places us in history, and once you know where our placement is in history, you're able to tell where we're going. I said that the top stack of my Russia prophecies are all fulfilling. America is falling in the rankings. America is falling in international esteem. America's falling as a world power. But that doesn't mean she has lost her might. That doesn't mean that anybody can just walk across the border and bomb us and fulfill the bottom stack. The bottom stack of the prophecies talk about the war that will destroy this nation. The bottom stack talk about the fact that Russia and China are going to creep here through the waters, through the sky, and through the borders, and fight what Yah called blitzkrieg, which means a lightning war. As soon as that war starts to invade this country, that's how fast it's going to end. It's going to start and it's going to end, because America is not going to expect that blow. The blow that Yah says we will get is a sucker punch blow. Cha! Like that. And the war will be over. A lot of Americans, especially males, cannot accept that. They want to tell me about the Piper 5 and the 6. I don't know what we use to fight wars here, and I don't need to know, because the ending of the war is waiting for us in the distance. America will be bombed to pieces, and Russia will strip this nation down for parts, including taking its people into captivity. As they took the African Americans and the Native Americans to work for them into bonded chattel slavery, so it will be. Once I deliver the message and say that I saw in my sleep and with my own eyes that the auction blocks were raised again, and people were standing on it as they took Skylar one way and Tyler one way, then what do I need to say? I don't need to know what mechanisms we use to fight wars here. The ending of the war is waiting for us in the distance. We will lose, because it will be a sucker punch blow followed by infiltration with sleeper cells inside the country. There are millions of Russian and Chinese people inside the country who are American citizens. And Yah says that in the case of the Russians, how will you know? He says they're even more American than you. They're blonder than you, and they're more loyal to the country than you. If those people have to cosplay as Republicans or Democrats, You know that they're doing that because that's what makes your cover bulletproof. They will only come out and we will only know who they are on the day that the signal for the invasion goes off. And that day is not yet. So all we're looking at is that the top stack explaining how America will drop until all the countries start to complain about her and disrespect her. We're already there. If the Colombian president is showing the entire United Nations that Donald Trump is not a fit leader to listen to, something that Putin has been saying for at least 2 years, but now other people are angrily saying it. The EU said it this year. When J.D. Vance went over there and insulted them, they had a whole different set of conferences in which they were dropping bombs. They were dropping verbal bombs a few months ago. So the top stack of the prophecies, like the eagle will fall, all the top stack about how we lose influence and lose footing. You know, to kill a popular man, you don't just roll up on the popular man. You have to first bring that man down to a level that when you kill the popular man, not everybody is moved by the death. It's just a Tuesday for some people. That's what happens when you make a man irrelevant, or when a man makes himself irrelevant by the things he says. When he leaves this earth, not everybody's going to have to be forced to have a response that other people who are moved by the death think that they should have. That is why I've always said in these prophecies that when America is struck, those who are still punch drunk with American love in the foreign nations will be crying, America's such a beautiful nation. America can never fall. They will be having heart attacks, because if America can be dropped publicly like that, then those nations will know in their heart that their enemies can do the same to them. But then there are other nations, I said, all those nations that America has ripped off their arm with her attack dog. Do you really think Venezuelans are going to cry if something happens here? Do you really think that Iraqis and the Arabs, who are a considerable bunch of people, will cry? Do you think that all the Muslim nations in Africa will cry? It's only those who are still the groupies of America that will cry, but other nations will look, and Yah said they will feel vindication. They don't even believe in God. Some of them, Egypt doesn't believe in the God of heaven. Egypt is Muslim. Sudan is Muslim. The Emirates are Muslim. But when they see America pay the debt that she has owed for a while now in tasting defeat, isn't that one of my old prophecies? From the very beginning, it's called Defeated at Last. Defeated at Last, a short prophecy that just explains how you drop, how you make enemies, how the enemies plot on you, and then one day you will eat the food that they've cooked for you. Inevitably, you will eat the food that your enemies cook for you, because the same way that you don't miss when you're shooting, the enemies also will take their aim and they won't miss. And so in this dream, you see God elevating me to a place where he's calling it school, but it's a place where he now invites you into the depths of his things. He now invites you into the depths of his things, what he knows, what he sees, how he sees the world. And you're able to take on the mind and the eyes of the Lord and understand and then bring it out. The problem is that when you're with the Lord, it's fine. He brings the mind to you and you receive it. But when you come outside now with a mind that doesn't match up, whatever puppet other people in the world are calling God for them, then they're upset. This is why you then hear, God never told you that. But then how would you know? Because you have a puppet. How would you know? You're following a puppet. So how would you know what actual God thinks, what actual God has to say? Why would a person worshiping a puppet ever believe that a God who actually hates, for instance, sectarianism, he hates breaking off into sects, sects. Apostle Paul speaks of that. He says, why do you say I was baptized by Apollos and he's like, why are you breaking off into your groups? Why are you doing that when we are one body? So if your version of God, for instance, is white nationalism or black liberalism or whatever it is that you follow, the version of God that you believe, for instance, that you can follow same sex and God still loves me and everything, then why would you actually be able to take off your goggles, take off that thing that's on your head where your God is, and listening to God talk about real things according to how he has not only seen them, not only how he sees them, but how he has set them and will now work them like a man working bread. He will now work them into the real world outcomes that we will see. For instance, if you're America and you hear that God sees you as wicked and unfaithful and cruel and a robber and a pillager upon the earth, why would you accept that? You will never accept that until God continues to squeeze the fabric of reality, molding it and shaping it until the day you see Russia standing in the streets of this country. That is the only way some people are ever going to believe these prophecies. They're going to wake up and they're going to see Vladimir, Boris, and friends in the streets of their suburbs, of their neighborhoods. And that is the day that they will now be forced to their knees to say, indeed, it is the Lord, because they don't want to do it of their own free will now, because they believe that they have choices and that they have views and that I have to accept their views and consider their views. I cannot. When I've been given the mind that I've been given and I've been told, I look at it this way, I'm not leaving looking at that way for you, for anybody else. So that's what makes me, for instance, able to rebuke Israel and at the same time warn Israel and at the same time teach them and at the same time telling them, I've been sent to you and the Lord says to comfort you. I can do all those four things at the same time from the same God, because he will rebuke, he will discipline, and at the same time, he will warn and he will comfort. The same God is able to do all those things to one group of people. So there's no Israel is right or Israel is wrong. Israel is wrong in many areas, but because they are his chosen, he will shave off all among us who are fat. You know that the fat is excess, but you also know that on a piece of meat, fat goes bad the fastest. The rest of the meat can be pretty good, still good, but the fat will turn blue and it will stink. And so Yah is going to trim the fat off in every area of life, in all demographics of life, all colors, all backgrounds. He's even going to trim fat in foreign nations where they don't follow gods, our God. Where they follow other gods, he's going to smash their gods. He's going to smash their buildings. He's going to give them terrible natural disasters until by his own mercy, he will start putting it upon their hearts that it's because we don't worship the true God. Revival can break out in the midst of terrifying judgments. Not the fake kind that was taking place at the Megaplex Coliseum talking about there's a revival in America. No, there's a revival of Nazi sentiment. That's what that was. True revival that is driven by the Holy Spirit is available to all backgrounds, all nations, all colors, all faiths. Jesus Christ is waiting for you. And so the word to these who lie, the words to these who have commandeered all the TV, all the media, all the print, all the movies, every single way, they've taken it over and presented to us a narrative that has made us all tilted in our understanding. Yah is coming to bring back the truth. And this blog and this video in particular is one of the ways that God is doing it. And so you can rewind this video to hear all of the characteristics. I'll read to you again a piece from, for instance, where I said, I didn't get taken by the car to go to an actual school. I went to my house and I made a video and I said to the people of the world, the man in the suit is a liar. And God showed me he lies and he takes things from others. He's not a good person. He has done terrible things and they're trying to cover it up. It's not the Palestinians. It's him. He's the one. He's the problem. He is the cover-up. that disturbs the nations. God showed me the book isn't real and it's dangerous because it lies. Please don't believe him. I am here telling you from Jesus, stop listening to that man. And so when God is telling you that a person is able to put one persona before you, and then when the truth starts to come out about them, they begin to show so much rage, white knuckles clutching their propaganda papers and saying, I've heard that there's lies about me on the internet, and I've heard that people are not. Israel is heavily behind the sale of TikTok. Israel is the one who are heavily lobbying the United States to make sure that it harasses Singapore until Singapore and ByteDance, the parent company that I think China owns, to give it up. They've been lying for a long time. Oh no, it's a security risk and everything like that. That's not the truth of it. The truth is that Gen Z has single-handedly lobbied that one space, even more than Facebook, Instagram, anywhere else. Gen Z has turned that space into a javelin in the throat of Israel. They're all over the comments, bombarding every video that is put up, trying to paint Israel in a positive light. They are all over the place, bombarding anyone with eyes with real-time images. Do you know that Israel has bombed up to 6 countries in the last 30 to 40 days? 6 independent countries, including Qatar in the Middle East. Do you really think the Emiratis are going to sit there and act like the situation is okay just because America is, we stand with Israel? There's probably tape on everybody in the government going all the way back to, I don't know, Mr. Kennedy's time. Maybe that's why the government of the United States, blindly in the face of genocidal atrocities, continues to stand with Israel and compel the people of America to believe that in order to be morally superior humans, they also need to stand with Israel. But your children don't care about your crusted over politics. They are putting real-time images of people dying so that anyone with a conscience, red or blue or Bernie Sanders, who is just a flip-flopper, can look at those images and begin to question their allegiances and why they are people who hold those allegiances. Did anything in the Bible tell you that you're supposed to hold an allegiance blindly just because it feeds into some kind of thing in your heart that thinks, well, yeah, I stand with them and somehow that makes me stand a little taller than anyone else? You stand with people who are bombing other people and then coming and lying on TV that they bombed Hamas. So you don't see Hamasians dying in the videos. You see teens, you see women that practically want to rip off all their clothes except for cultural norms, because that is the wound of having yet another son die. It makes you want to tear off everything. And then they just have to come and say, no, have no fear. I know it looked like a hospital, but Hamas was in the hospital. Because, of course, that's what Hamas does, right? Hamas goes and sits in hospitals where people are bleeding and needing medication and everything else. That's a believable story to the people in this country. Majority demographic who will be hearing that will say, yes. And all colors actually will hear that and say, well, it's Israel has a right to defend themselves. Well, guess what? Playing field has changed. Now everybody has a right to defend themselves. It's never funny once the chicken gets the butcher knife. When the chef has the knife, then, the chef already has the knife. The balance of power favors the chef. And then you will hear people with bravado. The chef has a right to protect himself. Let the turkey jump up from the table, put its head back on, and also pick up a cleaver. Then all of a sudden, it's aggression. It's aggression. Do you know this word that is called hypocrisy? Hypocrisy, being a hypocrite. Have you ever heard of that word? Ponder. Because it's rife within these borders. If you really want to see Jesus, I truly suggest internal rotation. I suggest that you put on your policeman pat uniform, jump into your soul, and begin to patrol every single corner that your flashlight can find to look at what you have tucked away in the nooks and crannies of yourself. What you support, what you say, how you act, what you believe, and the inherent bias that is in a lot of brains in this nation, even brains that have been sitting here listening to me for a long time. All it takes is a certain thing to happen. And then, like the man, you go to your true inner Rumpelstiltskin nature. And then we can see, well, this was here all along. It was laying still like a rake. Maybe the rake didn't even know that inside itself, all you had to do was step on it, and then it would turn into a snake. So, from the time of the brown suit to the time of the modern, well-cut, better quality black suit, the storyline was the same. It's an imminent slaughter, and we are surrounded. We need your help. We are the Jews. So partner with us to avoid genocide. Okay. You've heard the word of the Lord. You've heard the dream. You've heard that God says to stay away from the man in brown because he's a liar. He is very dangerous. And soon you will see why I say that. You will see why I say that, because the Israelis are going to start bombing people. Not that they ever do anything low key, but they're going to start bombing people in a way that will be so egregious, so bold, so provocative, that really we are going to find ourselves on the eve of genuine war. I am Celestial, and this is the Master's Voice. The Master's Voice is an end times prophetic resource that the living God has raised up on this world of compromise, lies, and deception, so that the true people of God can have some kind of light to find their way back to. On this blog is where you will be reminded that you're not on this earth to impress anybody. You are on this earth to come back to communion with the living God, so that you can be in his arms on the last day, so that you can be acceptable, so that you can be brought into true fellowship, eternal fellowship with him that will last longer than this transient life that we are spending here on the earth. God bless you. Thank you for listening. And until I see you again, goodbye.